I'm here.
Hi, John.
Hey.
Are you driving?
Oh, you may.
I'm a passenger on my way to pick up my daughter
All good.
to bring her home because her roommate is going to her parents' house for 2.5, 3 weeks. So I have to go pick up my daughter.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. It's Monday, April the 20th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach. It's 9 a.m. and all council members are present virtually. We'll do an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, we focus on the very best that can happen for our lives through your help. Show us what we need to do this day. Give us the strength physically, mentally, and emotionally. Help us to successfully meet every aspect of our lives. We ask, Almighty God, that you will inspire us with creative and dynamic ideas. We place our trust in you. Be our guide so that we can meet our lives with joy and confidence. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. For those of you at home, we're going to now say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us by standing and placing your hand over your heart, there's a flag in the background. Or there's a flag in the audience. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item is the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? Any objection? The approval of the final agenda is approved. Okay, next up is public comment. As always, Michelle, what do we have this morning?
I have a number that have come through the email, public comment email. The first is from Karen, HAINLINE at AOL.com. I am 62 years old and have been an owner at Island Towers for many years, along with my parents and siblings. I do not party or gather on the beaches, but enjoy walking the beach in the early morning and the evening. My timeshare starts May 9, and I am asking you to open the beach so that I might enjoy walking for exercise and mental health. I only have 1 week to come, and it is May 9.
Thank you.
The next is from, and this is also by email, mleverich@gmail.com. Council members, when will the beaches be opened? Why can't they be open for moving people? Our sidewalks are not closed. Therefore, why is the beach closed? Also, when can vacation rentals begin again? Thank you.
Okay. Next.
This next one is from Len Lemmer, 206@gmail.com. It's a little lengthy. I haven't timed these. Here are my objections to the new Bayside development. Number one, Bayside Park is the only public access area which gives an unobstructed view of the back bay. It is used as an observation area for guests and residents. It is a viewing area for numerous activities on the bay. It has hosted the pirate battles during the Pirate Festival. It has hosted viewers as the Roar offshore power boats pass by. It is the only public viewing area for people to watch the annual boat parade. It is a wonderful viewing area for guests as they are dolphin watching. It serves as backdrop by hundreds of photographers. Number two, construction of a multi-story building on the waterfront for the sole use of boaters in the mooring field obstructs the view for everyone else. It is an idea that serves too few people to the exclusion of everyone else. Unobstructed views of the waterfront are a valuable disappearing resource. They are to be protected. Directly in front of the water should be open, allowing people to gather to watch events and to walk the waterfront. Number 3, any building that benefits boaters who moor in the town's mooring field should be directly adjacent to the existing dinghy dock. The existing parking lot adjacent to the dinghy dock is a more logical place for these boater services. It should not intrude into the public's ability, the view of the back bay. Len Lemmer, Fort Myers Beach resident and business owner.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lemmer. Next.
This next is from Nick, RULAND at AOL.com. Here are some concerns and thoughts regarding RFQ-19-06-PW. It went from a remodel to Bayside development. It now looks like its main function will be to provide service and access for the mooring field. It is possibly the largest live-aboard marina in Lee County. The Bayside Park, which is in the entertainment district, be available for entertainment for all of Lee County and Fort Myers Beach residents and visitors. Do the funds earmarked at this time come from the entertainment district Times Square? Do most of the utilities for the beach come through that right of way? There was talk of that spot being used as one of the main future water taxi pickup and drop off to help cope with traffic. Thank you for listening at such a late date. Nick Ruland, business owner.
Thank you, Nick. You have a glass of water, Michelle? You want to take a drink of water?
I do, thank you.
That's a big job to read all that.
Well, there's a few more.
Okay, take your time.
This is from Peter Ennis, ENNIS, gave the number 239-220-6507. Please share info about proposed Bayside Park that was originally called Times Square. I am an FMB business owner and would like and need time to understand this project. I'm sure with coronavirus, you all are extremely busy. Please don't make a decision that could ruin business on the old seaport area. It is a beautiful spot to walk around. Enhance the park, but please don't turn it into anything but a sightseeing area. Thank you, Peter Ennis.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis.
Oh, we have several more.
Be careful, that water will kill you.
Yeah, what's the W.C. Field say? This is from Jan Fleming. Mr. Mayor and Town Council, I am writing this today to address the council in your decision to possibly reopen the beach. For those of you who know my husband Ron and I, you know that we love the beach as much as anyone, and we are on the beach most days, either riding our bikes or enjoying the beach sitting under our umbrellas. However, I believe the safety of our residents is paramount to protecting our health by keeping our beaches closed. Governor DeSantis has mandated that all schools shall remain closed for the remainder of the year. I ask you to consider this and to also follow the guidelines as set forth by the medical experts, including our local Lee County Director of Health. If we would reopen the beaches, our town will resemble Jacksonville, which has been overrun by people coming from outside the region to go to the beach. If we would reopen the beaches, our beach will resemble spring break at its height, as we will be one of the only beaches open in this region. I am a resident of Estero Island, and I respectfully ask you to follow the guidelines of the national medical experts who have been advising President Trump. Until our state and county is able to test thousands of people, we must remain vigilant and not expose our town to unnecessary risks associated with this pandemic. Again, please do not open our beaches until it is safe. and today is certainly not the day to do so. Thank you, Jan Fleming, 937-344-2974.
Thank you, Jan.
I got a couple more.
Go ahead.
This is from mleverich@gmail.com. Number 1, when will the beaches be opened? Number 2, when can vacation rentals begin again? Number 3, is there any rule that condo pools must be closed? Thank you.
Thank you.
This is from Amy Gillette, 24@gmail.com. Lockdown was started on March 17th, and we have complied with everything that has been asked of us. Our restaurant has complied with 50% occupancy, then takeout only, and then we closed our doors March 24. This is a hardship on everyone involved. It is time to start opening our beaches. People can 6 feet distance on beach or choose to stay at home. Time limits can be in place, AM hours and PM hours. We moved to Fort Myers Beach to enjoy the beach. We moved to Fort Myers Beach. Okay, we moved to Fort Myers Beach to enjoy the beach. It is time to move forward. We are residents on the island and own a business on the island and should be permitted to walk on the beach to enjoy sunrise or sunset for our health. Tree and Amy Gillette, sent from iPhone.
Thank you.
I have 2 more. This is from Paul Rosen, Marina Village at Snug Harbor. Dear Council, 3 of the concerns I have concerning the Bayfront Park project are the following. Number 1, a problem already exists from the mooring field boats polluting our waterfront with overboard sewage discharge. And it's no secret that there is a goal of doubling the number of moorings. We see evidence of this black sewage floating by the docks and businesses at Old Seaport Place. On the incoming tide, it floats by the other way from boats in the area where the town wants a second field. I was told that ABC recently ran a segment about the Fort Myers Beach sewage problem during a nightly news report. Has there been a study or an analysis of this problem and related issues such as the effective enforcement of holding tank and pump out requirements and regulations? Do we want to make local, state, and national news for the wrong reasons? Number 2, from the town's financial standpoint, is this a fiscally sound proposition? Has the true future cost of managing, maintaining, providing security, pump out services and enforcement, insurance, etc., been examined from a feasibility standpoint? Are there any documents about the current and future finances of this project that are available for review and comment? Is there a better location for the facility, at the same time allowing the park to maintain the view and beauty and openness that attracts thousands of locals and visitors? Number 3, if the town builds a dinghy dock in non-compliance of state DEP regulations or gets a waiver from mandated setbacks, it creates a serious navigational hazard. The temporary dock a few months back demonstrated that in spades. The liability problems will be ongoing and expensive for the taxpayers, in addition to the dangerous situation that will inevitably cause injury. I request that you hold off on executing a design contract until there is further input so that the project is the best it can be. There is no rush, since my understanding is that the funding is not immediately available. If I've been misinformed and it is available, is that still reason to plow ahead and go fast instead of taking time to get it right? Thank you for your time, Paul Rose in Marina Village, Snug Harbor.
Thank you, Paul.
And the last, and these are all by email, so if anyone would like them sent so that you can read them at your leisure. This is from marinaman181@aol.com. Excuse me. Dear City of FMB, this is Jim Figueredo. I own both the Nervous Nellies and the Snug Harbor properties with both marinas on each side that surround Bayside Park. Excuse me. By putting a dinghy dock between my two docks would create a terrible navigational hazard. With the strong currents, wind, and tight area, it would be an accident waiting to happen. But more importantly, the city signed an agreement allowing access to their riparian lines, and I would expect the city to honor their agreement. Roger and Chelsea have the agreement. Currently now, the dinghy dock people walk to Matanza to use the bathrooms. They can walk to Bayside Park, which is about the same distance. Also, there is plenty of room to put a bathroom right at the dinghy dock. There are plenty of room and it would be perfect for the mooring field. No need to put anything else there, so it would only use up a few parking spots. I am excited about the Bayside proposal, with the exception of the dangerous dinghy docks and bathroom for the mooring field. They need to be separate so the residents and tourists can use Bayside and the mooring people can use their private bathroom under the bridge. Could we please take a few weeks to come up with a win-win for both the city and the businesses that surround it? I think you will find all of us wanting the best for the city and the best for our businesses. Just give us time to sit down with staff before we make a final decision. And I believe everyone will win. Thank you so much for your consideration. Jim Figueredo, 489 Madison Court, Fort Myers Beach, and the property of Nervous Nellies in Snug Harbor.
Thank you, Jim.
It's the public comment that I've received.
Thank you, Michelle, for reading all those. It's quite a job. And I want to thank everybody who is participating in the public virtually here. It's very important to our meetings. So the next item on the agenda is local achievements and recognitions. I'll start with you, Vice Mayor Hasselfros.
Actually, before that, I have a question. We had been taking public comment via keeping people in the waiting room on the Zoom app. Are we still doing that?
I didn't hear from the clerk, so I presume no one was there. But Madam Clerk, is there anybody waiting in the Zoom room, waiting room?
You're muted, Michelle.
I'm told there is, but you know what? I don't see them, whether it's a setting on my screen.
I have them. I'll let them in one at a time.
Amy's going to let them in one at a time.
Okay.
Looks like there's 10 participants.
Good call, Roxanne.
Thank you.
Okay. Lauren Dillard is connecting. Lauren Dillard, you're still muted. There you go. Lauren Dillard, you're still muted. There you go.
It shows I'm unmuted now.
You are, we see and hear you, Ms. Dillard.
Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
I'm here particularly to listen on the discussion of Bayside Park.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Next.
This is Karen, Hainline. She had submitted one by email, and she is also connecting to speak. So that's twice for her.
Twice.
Ms. Hainline, there you go. We can see and hopefully hear you. You are.
Thank you. Has the meeting started?
Go right ahead, ma'am.
Has the meeting started?
It's well underway. Yes, it is. Please go ahead with your.
Right, I'm on Zoom, but it just now connected.
I don't think that folks understand that they're coming in for public comment, Ray.
Really?
We were told to email. We were told to email it in.
And I did receive and read your email, and we understand that you're going to make public comment, and you are in view and sound to all of the members of the council. Are you going
Thank you.
to comment, or are you only here to observe?
Oh, I'll make a comment. I have no problem.
We're waiting.
Thank you. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought we weren't allowed to make a comment. I'm 5th-generation owner of Island Towers. I'm 62, and all I do is go down there to walk the beach in the mornings and take a rest. And I would like to see not only Island Towers open because I'm an owner and I pay taxes, but also to give me my rest and my vacation I need in my condo. I'm not a partier. I don't go out on the beach at night. I walk the beaches in the morning. I have no problem staying 6 feet away from people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Michelle, do you think the other ones that are staying in the waiting room, do you think they're waiting to publicly comment, or do you think they're waiting to, or they're just watching the meeting?
We're here for public comment.
Okay. Oh, good. All right, next.
Mr. Curtis, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Mick Curtis. I'm a resident of Fort Myers Beach.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to thank you for shutting the beach down when you did. I think that courageous decision saved hundreds of lives, both those of residents and workers. I'd love to have the beach open. I'm a bike rider and I ride the beach each morning. And when it happened, I was upset, but it was a wonderful thing you did. It's too early to open our beach up again now. The curve is not low enough. Talk of opening the beach, I've heard that, but it's too soon. Right now, we're only doing 150,000 tests per day. That needs to be increased to 500,000. Now there's 20% of those tests are positive. That needs to be reduced to between 3 and 12%. Now swabs and reagents are limiting the amount of tests that we can give. Testing's just not where it should be. Contact tracing to identify and track cases needs to be ramped up. I'd like to thank you for a courageous decision to keep our beach closed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those comments. And have a good day.
Thank you.
Can we pull up the next one, Michelle, please?
It looks like Deb.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like Mr. Figueredo is the next speaker.
You know, this double.
Yeah, I know.
All right, well, we'll deal with that at a later date. All right, bring up, Jim.
Well, Mr. Figueredo, we're ready for your comments. Well, apparently he's connecting, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, we'll move on to another one, come back to Jim if that's okay. Unless he's right there now.
Mr. Figueredo, do you hear us? And since the meeting has started, Mr. Mayor, I have received a couple more emails with public comment.
That's fine. We'll get them all. We'll get them all.
I believe the notice indicated a deadline for when emails were supposed to be submitted.
That's correct.
Who's that? I can't see or hear. Is that Dan?
I don't know, Mayor, I can't.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
Mr. Figueredo, do you hear us?
Okay, Michelle, let's move on to the next one, please.
Well, I don't know. The name PYPER has appeared,
Okay.
and we see a woman. Do you hear us? Christy? Do you hear us? We're ready for public comment if you're here to make comment.
I do hear you.
Morning.
All right, go ahead, please.
Morning.
I do.
Go right ahead, Christy, please. Or not. Christy, are you with us? We've lost Christy.
Awful lot of people trying to connect, but
Awful lot of dead air time here.
yes, indeed.
Helps you appreciate just direct human contact, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Trisha Becker, we see you. Do you hear us? Would you like to make public comment? No? Okay, thank you. Roger Cook, would you like to make public comment? No response. Brian L., would you like to make public comment? No, thank you very much.
These are all people in the waiting room, huh, Michelle?
Apparently. It shows 21 participants, but.
No.
And I see Len Lemmer, he has made comment via email.
Yeah, extensively. I think we've heard from
Yeah.
Mr.
Wendy Rafinsky. Susie, Chuck Bodenhafer.
Good morning.
We have
Good
someone.
morning, Jackie.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me now?
I hear someone, I'm not sure who's speaking.
This is
Well, Mr. Mayor, I seek your direction.
Well,
Okay.
is that Jackie?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's coming. It says on ours, Jackie Lizak's network bandwidth low. Why don't you try another one, Michelle, please? That one's not coming.
Magdalena Hager. Good morning. Would you like to make public comment?
Just a suggestion here, the RAL resorts, but most,
Identify yourself, please.
Magdalena Hager with RAL Resort Property Management.
Nice to see you. Okay, go right ahead.
I've held these meetings with 75 plus people. Most of the people are in your waiting room just to connect and listen, not necessarily to make public comments. So we're sitting there, no one knows what's happening because you can't hear anything.
Well, my suggestion to you would be then, if you're just waiting to listen, then you either go to our website or go to YouTube or I believe Comcast. Is that correct? Am I right?
And I understand that, and I was on the YouTube channel, but seeing what the problem is, that's what most of your people are dealing with on the other side.
Well, I suspected that.
Okay, I'm in the middle of a council meeting. Are you calling about the red coconut permit?
So that's the problem. And I was typing, Michelle, I was typing you some info on the side because you can't chat if you're in the YouTube meeting. And that's what people want to do, is they want to post their comments on the group chat.
There's no chatting during the meeting.
I know. I'm just saying that's what people are.
I know. And that's what we tried to explain earlier, was that if you're either in the chat, you're in the waiting room to speak publicly, or you can email comments in, one or the other. That's what we're limited to right now. All right.
I understand.
Okay. Well,
This is confusing because the Instagram link said this is how you go to observe the meeting. So we've been sitting here waiting to observe the meeting. The Instagram link was incorrect then, because I think that's what everyone is sitting here waiting to see the meeting.
I don't know where the Instagram link came from.
We don't know what that is. Instagram link. We don't know what that is.
It was posted on an Instagram account. And it said if you would like to join the town council meeting, was that correct? If you want to join the town council meeting, please go to this link, join the Zoom meeting we
don't have control over what goes out over all these different waves and so forth. I don't know that the town has an Instagram account. Do we, Michelle?
We do not.
I didn't think so.
We do not.
Is there a way we can watch the meeting right now? Maybe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just explained that to the other lady that was on the line. You can either go to YouTube and watch it. You can go to the Comcast, whatever that station is, and watch it, or you can go to the town website and watch it. Okay?
Could you? Yeah, I just need a name of the YouTube account. We're just not familiar with this. I don't mean to be rude or anything.
No. You're not being rude. You're not being rude. I understand that. Michelle, can you give this gentleman all the particulars about those three?
Maybe you could message it out in a chat so anybody that wants to join could go to that. You could send a group chant via Zoom.
You know what? All this information is disseminated prior to these meetings, and why they're getting the wrong information, I really don't know.
Yeah,
but that's going to be difficult to do at this stage here right now. So, Michelle, would you just recite those three different locations where they can tune in, please?
The meeting is available on Comcast Channel 98. It is available for the audio only. There is no video, through the town's website. And it is also available through YouTube. And the link to the YouTube channel is on the town's website.
Okay. All right. That's as I suspected, Michelle, that most of those people in the waiting room are really there to watch the meeting. So they've been instructed now, and I don't know, hopefully they'll get that information out amongst each other and be able to move on. But we're going to have to move on with the meeting. So,
Mr. Mayor, did you want to honor the emails that have come in since the start of the meeting to the public comment email?
How many are there?
There are 3.
Okay, go right ahead. And cut it off after those, please.
Okay. The first is from Brian, ROESSLER @yahoo.com. Respectively suggest soft opening of all activities around FMB. I believe that by the 1st of May, there should be no reason that we could not have Estero Island residents enjoying the beach in limited ways. Walking, jogging, biking, shelling, even swimming. I believe there should be no sunbathing or group activities. Allow beach patrol to keep an eye on people rather than just sand. I also think that allowing restaurants to open with heightened restrictions would be prudent. Keeping tables 6 feet apart, no bar seating, looking into and following COVID-19 OSHA recommendations. Allow people to get out a little, and also allow employees and employers to start making a living again. Thank you, Brian L. Rosler, Lighthouse Resort.
Thank you, Brian. Next, Michelle.
This next is from Jackie Lezak. Counselors, with respect, the FMB Chamber and its membership request that you roll back our rental restrictions to be in line with our surrounding communities. We feel that we will suffer a tremendous competitive disadvantage if sister communities open up and allow the return of visitors before we are allowed to do so. All of our accommodation members have suffered greatly from the loss of guest stays on top of the mandated return of 90 days of rental income. To roll the restriction back would allow guests to book future stays, which would put some much needed revenue into these businesses. It goes without saying that relaxing this mandate will also assist supporting businesses with future revenue. For example, restaurants, shops, water sports, boat, fishing, and charter tours, marina services, etc. We understand that these restrictions were put in place with an abundance of caution, and we appreciate the council's position on keeping our community safe. We also understand that if you roll back restrictions, you may, in the future, have to extend them. We need you to know that we support a deliberate, well-planned, and coordinated return to normal. We will assist and cooperate with this in any way we can. We want to return to normal, but want to do so in the safest, most strategic way possible. Please assist us in this effort by relaxing our accommodation mandate and by allowing us to slowly get back to business. Thank you for your consideration. Jackie Lezak, Executive Director, Fort Myers Beach Chamber.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, Michelle.
This is from Dennis, GREENSPON @cottagesofparadisepoint.com. Regarding beach and accommodation closures, keep Fort Myers Beach closures in sync with our neighboring communities timing-wise. Treat all kinds of accommodations the same. Dennis Greenspan, 239-603-7732.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Michelle, for reading those. I apologize to everyone that may be listening here that did not have a chance to comment or were confused about the procedures and so forth. We're all kind of muddling through this together and trying to do the best we can. So, but my recommendations to everyone out there is to call in ahead of time or research on the town website what the procedures are to get onto these meetings. It's all spelled out pretty well, I believe. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your comments. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is local achievements and recognitions. Vice Mayor, I'll start with you.
I would just briefly like to recognize our town employees who are out there working and keeping things functioning, even at the level that we are. They're putting themselves on the line as well, and I want them to know I appreciate their efforts.
Thank you very much. Councilman Veach.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the Community Foundation and Barefoot Beach, was it planning with Janine Velasquez, just for their continued efforts to try to get some relief to our service workers. I would also like to thank our businesses. I know this is really tough trying to shut down. A lot of them are being very creative and trying every avenue they can to keep their doors open, and we hope they're successful. And lastly, I'd just like to thank everybody who is practicing social distancing because it seems to be working. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Councilman Adderholt.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Councilman Allers. Dan?
Sorry about so I was on mute. I'd like to thank the hashtag We Are FMB people, the organization, all the volunteers, all the people donating, buying the shirts. They're doing a great thing for some of the people that need some help. They're handing out quite a few gift cards, which is very, very helpful. And I'd also like to thank the Lee County Sheriff's Office. I've been hearing from some people that they've been very responsive when they've been receiving calls, and they've been very helpful. And I have noticed them as I've been out walking and biking around that I'm seeing more and more of them, or it appears I'm seeing more and more of them patrolling the streets. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Dan. I only have one item. This was sent in to me from from Fran Myers with the Beach Kids Foundation. I'd like to read it. It's the Beach Kids Foundation COVID-19. The Fort Myers Beach Kids Foundation is presently working on purchasing food gift cards for our beach kids families. The beach school provided us with the names of 80 families so far. Beach kids and their families are having a major impact from COVID-19, as many of them work for our local community. Many Fort Myers Beach residents are currently donating money to the Beach Kids Foundation in order to help us. Quote, our beach kids and families are #1 in our community, end quote, says Linda Beasley. Our entire foundation board, friends, and supporters are focused on raising funds to help our kids. If you would like to help, reach out to our firefighters. They are selling their calendars, and all proceeds will go to the Beach Kids Foundation. In the first few days, we have reached almost $10,000. As of this week, each family has received $100 gift cards to the public supermarket. If you would like to donate, contact the Beach Kids Foundation at 239-980-0061. Also, you can mail donations to 2801 Estero Boulevard, Suite B, Fort Myers Beach, Florida, 33931. And then it was also added that the Beach Kids got all our school kids' family names and addresses from Miss Renee and the principal. We sent each family $100 Publix gift cards, no info, just mailed them. Another neighbor of mine here on the street, this is of the writer, gave me a check for $5,000. So many generous islanders. Okay, we have, okay, blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, that's, I just wanted to read that to you. The Beach Kids Foundation are also doing good work, as are many others. And I would like to add my congratulations to you all's for Janine Palauskas and her group with the hashtag We Are FMB. They're doing great work, and it seems to roll on. So we're all very pleased with that. Well, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is advisory committee items and reports. Are there any reports today, Michelle, from advisory groups?
No, there's not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next item is the approval of minutes. We have the Town Council special meeting of March 30th, 2020. We have the Town Council virtual meeting of April 3rd, 2020. And we have the Town Council regular meeting of April 6th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I would move to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second it.
And moved and seconded. I had one correction on one of the sets. It had something to do with something I said. It was on the the March 30th meeting. Down on page 4 in our packet, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, it said Vice Mayor Murphy suggested that residents in that area cross the street and walk in neighborhoods with sidewalks. I did in fact say cross the street, and as we all know, there are no sidewalks in most of the neighborhoods on the island, if not all of the neighborhoods. So that's a very minor correction, but I didn't want people to think that I was ignorant of the fact that there was no sidewalks. What I really was saying there was if they crossed the street, they could walk on the sidewalk on the Bayside of Estero Boulevard while all the construction was going on the south end. So that's just a minor, very minor correction, but
I will amend my motion to reflect that correction, Mr. Mayor.
thank you very much.
I'll amend my second as well.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is the consent agenda. We have a proclamation this month, and I'll read that very quickly. This month is Donate Life Month, the transplanting organ and tissue donors. And I will read that as soon as I put my forward clause on it here. Okay. Town of Fort Myers Beach Proclamation. Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life. And whereas more than 39,700 Americans receive a life-saving organ transplant every year, and whereas a new patient is added to the national patient waiting list for an organ transplant every 10 minutes, and whereas over 112,000 men, women, and children are currently on the national waiting list for organ transplantation, of which nearly 5,800 are in the West and Southwest Florida area, and whereas an average of 22 people die every day waiting an organ transplant that does not come in time, and whereas one organ, tissue, and eye donor can save or enhance the lives of as many as 75 people, and whereas everyone is a potential organ, eye, and tissue donor and can register their wish to save lives through organ and tissue donation at www.donatelifeflorida.org or on their driver license. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, proclaims and recognizes April 2020 as Donate Life Month in the Town of Fort Myers Beach, and encourage all residents to consider giving life through organ donation and to sign up on Florida's Organ and Tissue Donor Registry by visiting www.donatelifeflorida.org or when renewing their driver's license or state identification card. Given under my hand and the seal of the office of mayor this 20th day of April 2020, Raymond P. Murphy, Mayor. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yes, sir, Jim.
If I could ask a procedural question, maybe it's a parliamentary inquiry for our town council, but just curious procedurally, and obviously it's not on the agenda for today, and we're also in sort of the state of emergency. The issues that have been raised, not only in public comment, but also through constituent input to all of us regarding beach access and rental restrictions, what would be the appropriate way to address those issues? Could we address those today, or is it your plan to maybe address those at the next council, at the M&P? What's our strategy as we go forward on these two sensitive issues?
Well, I had a feeling that would come up today. I've been hearing so much about this in the last several days, and of course it is not on the agenda. But you raise a good point, Jim, and my recommendation would be that if you have comments about this, that you can feel free to comment at the councilman items and reports section of this meeting, and then we can decide there if we want to address this at the next M&P meeting or or next meeting, whichever is first, I suppose. But that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. Okay. Next, we go into public hearings.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Yes,
We-
yes, ma'am.
Were you going to vote on the consent agenda?
The balance, is there a balance of the consent agenda? Is there?
Well, it's just the proclamation, but.
Okay, all right.
there was-
Okay, we'll, is there a motion to approve the proclamation for Donate Life transplanting organ and tissue donors? April, designating April as the month. Been moved by the Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilman Adderhall. Is there any discussion? Any objection? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. The next item is we're going to go to public hearings. And the first one is actually a request to continue. So I'll just read the title and we'll move on. It's a request for continuance ordinance 19-14 Publix CPD. Request to approve a continuance of the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 19-14, an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, replacing town of Fort Myers Beach resolution 98-11 and amending the schedule of uses for public CPD, providing for revisions to conditions of approval and other clarifications as necessary, providing for severability, providing for conflicts of law, and providing for an effective date. Is there a motion to continue this public hearing on this ordinance?
I'll make a motion.
It's been moved by Councilman Beach. Is there a second?
I'll
Mr.
second.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry. Yes.
And council, just for purposes of the motion that's been made, so if you want, you can specify it for a date and time certain, so the notice doesn't have to be re-advertised. Otherwise, when it comes back to you, it'll have to be re-noticed. It's your discretion, but generally speaking, we continue these matters for a date and time certain. I believe the actual request from Publix was for a continuance for 90 days. So it would be for the second meeting in the month of
June?
July.
July, second meeting of July.
Although we don't have meetings in July, right? We take a break in July.
Typically.
So it would be the first meeting in August.
Okay. Do we have a date for that? Does anybody have a calendar out? I'll look it up.
Bring it up, sir.
Okay.
I believe that would be August 3rd.
That's correct.
August 3rd. Okay. Would you like to amend your motion to include that date, please? The motion maker?
Yes, I'd like to amend that motion to be August 3rd.
Very good. And the seconder?
I will second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on this motion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And for those of you watching at home, that was Town Attorney John Herron reporting to you today from Chopper One above the friendly skies of Southeast Florida. Okay, the next item is the administrative agenda. We're going to have an update on the street lighting from Sesco Lighting. Do we have someone there, John? Roger?
Yes, we do. I believe we'll be bringing that person on in a moment. We just wanted to, we understand that this is a very important issue to the community. We try to have some ongoing discussions and try to maintain some momentum with regard to the issue. So that everyone can understand that it has not fallen off the table and it's being worked on. And by worked on, I mean by worked on by others. We're trying to reconcile, as you know, the issue of environmental lighting versus safety lighting, and that's being worked on at the state level. And as we previously discussed, our choices remain whiter safety lighting, the yellow environmental lighting, a combination thereof, or sort of keep what we have and wait for the dust to settle. But we wanted to bring someone in to get the new councilors up to speed on the issue in the event they hadn't been following it closely, and to give the council the benefit of, the entire council the benefit of where the issue sits as of right now, and how we can move forward with lighting. So with that, Michelle or Amy is, well, here she is. Hi, welcome, and thanks for joining.
I'm back. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Christy.
Good morning. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting. It's great to see so many constituents calling in regards to your issues. I'm actually located up in the Florida Panhandle, in Destin, Florida, right outside of Destin and Fort Walton Beach. So thank you very much for having me. I'm going to share my screen with you very quickly.
Excuse me, could you please state your name on the record, please?
Yes, ma'am. It's Christy Spawn with Sesco Lighting.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to share this very quickly and hopefully we are good.
How are things up on the Panhandle today, Christy?
About the same as what I think it is down there. Where I think we're all kind of in the same boat. We had a lot of rain and a lot of storm last night, but we woke up to beautiful sunny skies, so that's always a good thing.
Good.
Let's see here. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well done.
Normally I'm hosting and I'm not normally joining in, so I appreciate your patience. Just wanted to give you a quick overview on our company and exactly who I am and what I do in the lighting industry. I am a part of a very large company called Sesco Lighting. We were established in 1967, and we are currently the largest lighting manufacturing agency in the United States. So we cover multiple states, but our home office is actually in Maitland, near Orlando, and so we're kind of all spread out. We represent over 200 of the leading manufacturers in the LED industry. We specialize in specification and design solutions and are recognized as experts in solid state technology, also known as LED. We also do lighting controls, energy solutions, photometric calculations, and design layouts. And we have extensive experience working with municipalities such as Fort Myers Beach. And so I kind of got brought in due to the turtle community, you guys being a nesting area and a wildlife sensitive area. And there was a couple of questions that were asked of me. And so I just kind of wanted to share some things with you today and my observation and hopefully help guide you guys in finding a good permanent solution.
Christy,
I know that you've had.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Christy?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm looking at your screen here. You're going to have to replace that picture above wildlife lighting. We've got some other pictures of the water looking a lot better than that.
Oh, I'm sure. Forgive my selection.
Please ask us for another picture.
You got it. I sure can.
Go right ahead.
Doesn't do you much justice, does it? I know. We have the same problem.
And a much better logo now.
That's also Bill. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's good information. Thank you. Just a little bit about myself. I actually have experience with retrofitting over 300 existing properties and communities across Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. I'm known as a specification experience for my experience as well as an expert on wildlife-friendly applications and new construction projects to include commercial applications and public entities. I've had the pleasure of being a guest speaker at the International Sea Turtle Symposium for 2 consecutive years as an expert. And I'm also currently working with the utilities out of Tortuguero, Costa Rica, for their turtle-friendly solutions at one of the sea turtle reserves that is very well known in that community. And I also provide specification for the Sea Turtle Conservancy, which is a nonprofit throughout the state, and FWC initiatives as well. I do have professional relationships with International Dark Sky Association. I'm actually doing some work up in Minnesota right now where they're actually using amber for their night skies, and as well as the Conservancy, FWC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Alabama Coastal Foundation, because of course where I'm at, I'm right on the state line. So I have a lot of experience in wildlife applications. We don't just specialize in wildlife applications. We actually do all types of lighting, whether it's interior or exterior, commercial or municipality. So the idea behind it is to blend the two together to find appropriate solutions. So going through everything that you guys have been given and shown as good solutions, I've kind of dug into some of that information, and there was some analysis that was done, and really to get a good picture as to what type of solution would work best for your city, you guys need to have a very good lighting assessment done. And there has been a document that's produced as an assessment, and it was beautiful work, professionally speaking. I went through it and saw all of the information that had been given to you. So there's a couple of steps that when I do a neutral lighting assessment, when I'm trying to find the best solution that's out there, there's a couple of steps that we do. And I just want to kind of quickly go through those with you and understand what you guys have already been given and shown versus what still needs to be done in order for you guys to find an appropriate solution for you. You first really need to understand the need. And of course, Estero Boulevard has been the subject of analysis through the assessment that you guys have been given because of the coastal area and the safety factor. I understand that safety is a huge issue for you guys, and we want to make sure that whatever solution that you guys choose will serve both ends if possible. So making sure that the need of light all year long is located in that area is going to be very important. Understanding the environmental concerns and conditions is very important. We do have an ethical due process to look at both. Of course, safety and the concern for public use. Human life safety is the most important thing, so we always evaluate that. And of course, updated sources and locations. Has anything changed? Are there going to be changes that are going to need to be made? We take all of that into consideration and understanding the need. And then, of course, there's the considerations of the project itself. So FDOT came up in a couple of the documents that I overlooked. And of course, they have their set of recommendations when it comes to public right-of-way or street lighting, understanding the proper spacing, utilizing existing locations if possible. All of this was discussed in the assessment that was given to you. And then, of course, there was also mention in the wildlife-friendly initiatives and the FWC model lighting, which is across the state. And we can talk a little bit more in depth when it comes to turtle lighting if anybody has any certain questions or concerns about that. But what that entails is basically, you know, we have the Endangered Species Act, and being in coastal areas, we have the responsibility to make sure that we protect our areas. And that falls underneath the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and in the state of Florida, the FWC. So they have their model lighting, and can we kind of meld the two together? And then, of course, we look at the design. What exactly is the scope of work? We talked a little bit about Estero Boulevard being the central. So, of course, you know, your assessment that you were given laid everything out in black and white as far as what needed to be done and the scope of work. Assessing the area and existing conditions. How many poles do you guys currently have? How many can be reutilized? Which ways do we go? So we look at that through the design process as well, trying to mitigate what's best and most valuable for your city. And then also, probably one of the most important things that I'm going to touch on today is the photometric detail and study itself. What has been done and what needs to be done. And then, of course, it goes into implementation. So once you go through all of these and you have your design, what do you do to get it done? You have to tie everything together to create a solid plan, and then knowing your solutions and options available. So my viewpoint, because I don't have active status in your community, obviously I don't live there, my viewpoint is a third party. It's like a bird's eye view of what you guys have been going through, and trying to point you in the correct direction that would be most neutral and most valuable for yourselves. So we start with the considerations. And going through all of the information that you guys have been given and information that I've gotten from different members of your community is you guys currently have a leasing agreement with FPL, Florida Power and Lights. They actually just accumulated Gulf Power up here in the Panhandle, so I'm very familiar with them. Sesco is very familiar with them as we do business with them because we do utilities as well in our company, and we have a public sector division that specializes in that. So understanding the current leasing agreement, and then of course the past proposal that was given to you as a part of your assessment. The past proposal, they incorporated photometric detail, and it was really driven at a 4,000 Kelvin color temperature. And I understand why they would have done that, because 4,000 Kelvin is the norm when it comes to utilities. We tend to use that in multiple applications. And so that's pretty much the area in which they went to as a go-to. But without taking in consideration of the wildlife aspect, you're only getting one viewpoint. What concerned me so much about what FPL's proposal was, and like I said, they are a partner of ours, is that they really didn't take much of that into consideration, and they didn't give an honest assessment of it. And I think that that is a possible solution, and I think it should be inherently looked at. The good thing about FPL is that it's something that you guys already have in place. So if you can go to them and they're able to give you a solid solution, then it's an easy fix. Pros and cons of utilities in place. Pros is, of course, the maintenance side of it. You're going to have people who can come out there and fix things, and you know, as a city, you guys don't have to worry about it. Everything is already in place. And you guys already have existing lighting, so as far as a replacement goes, they could use the existing pole locations and so forth, which obviously you guys already have gone through that with your prior assessment. The cons of utilities is you don't ever own the light fixtures. So according to their proposal, they're asking you guys to have this huge amount of money up front in order to look at these other two with the 3,000 and the turtle friendly options, place a huge money up front, and then in addition to that, pay them a service fee every single month. And the town will never own those fixtures. So what happens is at the end of that leasing agreement, you either re-up or you cancel your agreement and they rip everything out. There is no ownership by the city at all. And FPL is a very large organization. So to this point, that's how all of these utilities work in many municipalities. And it's not just FPL, there's other utility companies out there too that have the same type of leasing agreement. So that's a little bit of the pros and cons with utilities and leasing agreements in general. Then you have your other consideration of FDOT. So FDOT has certain recommendations per se, and they're going to oversee the design aspect of what they're going to recommend as far as safety aspects go and requirements. They did just come out with a new assessment and new requirements that we all are aware of, and so we look at spacing, we look at the design standards and so forth. The good thing is that they will support in finding a viable solution. So their recommendations, much like FWC that we're going to talk about, are willing to compromise and find something in the middle that's going to work best for your situation. So that's good. It's just that the communication needs to be taken place. And then finally, we have FWC. They've established a model lighting ordinance and their recommendation for wildlife sensitive areas in supportive and collaboration efforts into finding a solution. One of the biggest misconceptions is if you go to the FWC website, they're going to tell you exactly how certain fixtures are certified and then also the usage. Utilities and large roadways are a completely different matter. They're not going to have that information online. That's when you partner with them directly and you say, this is our plan, this is what we need. Will you work with us? And the answer is yes, they will. I've had multiple conversations with FWC and Robin Trindell, who's in charge of that area, and they're interested in finding the best solution that will work both in the safety measures, but also to protect the environment. So having that communication is going to be key between those entities. So then we look at the design. A lighting report has already been generated and has included very thorough details to you guys that should all be considered and implemented in the design itself. The only problem that I see with the lighting report that was done for you guys is, like I said before, it only went towards that 4,000 Kelvin option. Photometrics are probably going to be the most important thing and the key to determining which fixtures will actually work and the conditions in which they're going to be utilized. The existing lighting report shows that these photometric studies, but they only utilize one type of source and one type of fixture. So they centered all of their study around this proposal, but never looked at those other options. And then when they did look at those other options, quite frankly, they were kind of inflated. So I think that those other options, professionally speaking, should probably be addressed and to provide you guys the right type of things. When we do the photometrics, what's important about them is we can actually see how those luminaires are going to perform, you know, in ground and the light coverage pattern. And I kind of put the small picture from your guys' insert up there. You can kind of see those isometric lines and where that light's going to be done. But like I said, they only did it with the 4,000 Kelvin version. They didn't even look at the amber, and they didn't look at the 3,000 either. We actually do photometrics, and we normally partner with engineers in specifications. So our job is to go in there and actually provide these types of drawings for engineers to compare and contrast. We get the information from IES, we plug it in, we run different photometrics, and what those photometric details allows us to do is to find the exact fixture that's going to work for you. Unfortunately, in the lighting report, by only saying, and with FPL, they have a very limited amount of supply. The problem with that when it comes to wildlife sensitive areas is there isn't just one fixture that's going to do the job. You have to look at the environment itself. There's multiple fixtures out there. The problem with going through the FPL route is that you only have limited availability on those fixtures. So that's what their comparison was looking at. And unfortunately, it gave you guys a very skewed report in the end. So implementing it, there's understanding two key solutions. So you guys have your assessment. You've seen what has been presented to you. You've had multiple people speak to you about it. What it comes down to, honestly, is that you guys have two solutions, and that's it. The first solution is to work with your current utility lease through FPL and finding the correct solution. And the way that you do that is you hold their feet to the fire and say, we have a need, you need to help us if you want us to continue your service. We actually have, and this is good news I wanted to share with you all, we've been in contact with FPL and trying to find a solution for municipality lighting. We have over, those 200 different manufacturers, and a good bulk of them do offer amber lighting. We actually had one of our Philips fixtures, because we represent Philips Lighting, just exit their salt chamber last week. FPL's testing measures take about 5 months. So you have to put the fixture in their salt chamber testing. It's a very vigorous testing that they go through. And our road focus is actually out of there. And they do make that in a large amber fixture. So I would be interested in looking at a fixture that would provide more light, such as the Philips fixture. So that's already in the works. In addition to that, we've also been on the front end of FDOT because they're having a certification list as well. And 2 of our fixtures are currently being submitted for that, including the roadway fixture I just mentioned by Philips, and another company called Visionaire Lighting, which we've used across the state in multiple applications. So the good thing is that because we do partner with FPL, we are hoping that specifically to your leasing and your situation, that if we're able to come up with a solution in partnership with them, we can offer a viable solution through FPL, since that's what you guys already have. What it comes down to when it comes to utilities is that it's probably the most efficient solution for low upfront costs, because you are already in that leasing program, and they have a tariff program and they receive rebates for them. And so you guys don't receive the price tag up front for it. They try to work with municipalities for their tariff program. So if we can get a good environmentally friendly fixture in there, then we can help solve that problem. Once again, the problem with your FPL leasing agreement is that there is no end to it. It goes on and on and on. So 10, 15 years down the road, if you decide you want to change your fixtures out, you have to go through this process all over again. And like I said, there's a couple of concerns that I had in the actual report itself. The first one is probably going to be on page 12 and page 15. On page 12 of your report, they give you all of the lumen data information for these fixtures. But like I said, they only compared one. They didn't really even look at the other 2 options that were on there. And because of the limited availability of their fixtures, the one that they were proposing wasn't an apple for apple comparison anyways. It was a much higher value in lumen output. So it just wasn't addressed very well. But they did what they did because of the availability in which they have. So then the other option that you have is buying private sector. You can either do your leasing. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask this question right after you made the points you just made. First of all, thank you for being here. You referenced holding FPL's feet to the fire, which I agree with. But you mentioned their tariff, and I want to explore that just a little further. Mm-hmm. Is the tariff prohibiting them from finding us an environmentally friendly solution? Does the tariff need to be changed? Do we need to go to the Public Service Commission to give them additional flexibility with their tariff, or are they able to use some of your suggestions within the current context of their existing tariff?
That's a great question. So typically when I'm going to get into the little bit of the technical side of Amber so that way you understand. Amber by nature has about a 70% light loss factor. So if you're comparing wattage to wattage, you're going to have a much higher wattage using Amber in order to get the right type of light output that you need in comparison to like a 4,000 Kelvin fixture. So the problem with the tariff is it only allows you for so much wattage for a fixture to fall into that category. And sometimes because of the amount of lumen output that we need, we exceed that wattage requirement. There are exceptions to that though, and you can get waivers for that. So it's just going to be work on FPL's end of having to make that possible. Is it doable? Absolutely, especially because we don't have a current solution. And I say we, in the lighting industry right now with the utility, with FDOT, there isn't a current solution, and we're on the brink of finding that. It's just going to take a little bit of legwork. The other problem with their tariff program is that they have a set amount of fixtures that they want to include on that. And Amber is traditionally not have been part of that. So it's just more work on their end. It's just whether or not they want to take the steps to do it. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we discussed the FPL, and that's a great question, is to understand. And the tariff can get it's very hard to understand. And I've been doing lighting for a long time, and there's still a lot of avenues that I don't quite understand on it. So it would be more research on my end to give you a direct answer of how all that works. But yes. The other option that you guys have is to buy private sector. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. There's a lot of municipalities and a lot of towns and cities that actually own their own lighting system. I'm doing one right now, excuse me, in Panama City, for Panama City Beach, in which they own their own lighting. And it makes it for a lot more of flexibility when you're looking at solutions. What's nice about it, and it even talks about this in the report that was given to you, is that by buying private sector, you're ensuring that you have correct lighting with the correct design. So you're not limited to a menu of light fixtures that you can choose from. You actually choose the fixture based on the application. So you just get better lighting overall. The problem is that the upfront costs are higher, but your end result is complete ownership, because you do have to incorporate the install, so labor, all of that has to be taken into consideration. But in the end, you own it, and you can do with it as you need to. The good thing about LEDs is that LEDs, can normally last between 10 and 15 years without having a lot of maintenance. You may have to replace a driver once in a while, but and the manufacturing warranties that people offer nowadays, they're great options for municipalities. Private sector can also offer other programs that can mitigate upfront costs but still allow your ownership. So for instance, CESCO, we have a program called Lighting as a Service. And what this program is set up for is just like municipality, and I've used it for developers as well, to where all of your project would go along. You would get with an engineer, you would either put it out to bid, however you decide you want to do it, and then you take all of your costs and you wrap it up into a pretty little package, and we go through a third-party service, and you just give a monthly fee. And at the end of your term, and the term is completely up to you, whether it's 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, they'll work with you on whatever those terms are. CESCO would abandon that asset, and you would take complete ownership with it. If you decided you wanted to do an upgrade, then you would just redo it. So there's other programs that are out there, and that provides the flexibility without having to have the upfront cost of collateral to get your lighting done. And we've done that because of these leasing agreements that utilities have had in the past, and for municipalities and developers who are looking for that solution that can still provide. The great thing about those programs is that you're still going to get the service as well. So not only do you wrap it up into like a leasing agreement where, you know, you're paying a monthly fee instead of everything at one time, if a fixture goes out, we send somebody out within 48 hours to repair. That's part of that servicing. So essentially you're receiving the same type, if not better service of what you would normally get with utilities, but in a private means.
Hey, Christy.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question on that?
Absolutely.
That service that you're talking about, is that something that can be piggybacked with state and federal grants, TDC funding, things of those natures?
I believe so, because we've used it. I do work with, I mentioned the Sea Turtle Conservancy. It's a nonprofit. They do grants mainly for commercial properties. I don't think they've ever done municipality lighting, and there's other grants that are out there. And we've actually taken grant money and just applied the grant towards the cost. So let's say it's just like, you know, like if you were to take a mortgage out on a home, if you had, you know, your down payment, you could apply whatever to that and it would just be a payment. So yes, you can do that. And that's a good question too. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know that on one of the previous town hall meetings that I watched, excuse me, grant funding was mentioned. There's grants out there. I don't know if there's any that would be available for you guys dealing with this project. I know when it comes to FWC or the Sea Turtle Conservancy, there isn't any grant fund money available right now in your territory. Some of these organizations will move in different areas, and some of them focus on other things rather than others. FWC, for instance, with their grant program, which I do believe is over now, they only did a 1,000-foot buffer zone from state parks. So it was very limited on the areas in which they could apply that money. And there's a couple of different other organizations. There may be federal money out there that I'm not aware of, but that's definitely a discussion that we can have with the FWC, because they would probably know if there's any type of funding available.
Thank you.
Christy, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Now, if you go private, do you lose access to the FPNL poles, and do you have to put in all the poles anew?
That is a very good question. The answer is yes. So the problem with utilities and going to private sector is that utilities will have existing fixtures on their poles. So they're going to essentially take the fixtures off, and if they do have any poles that you could use, they're going to cut access off to that. So essentially you'd be replacing all of your poles and all of your lighting. Something that I do want to bring up though, that I would advise you guys to really go back and look at your report, and this is just me being very honest, is that the financial study that they gave you on how much it would cost you, quite frankly, in a professional opinion, is absurd. They have a $15,000 price tag on a pole. And I've been in the lighting industry and I've done a lot of poles, and I've never seen a pole cost 15 grand. Sure. Now, I don't know if that's a utility pole that they plan on putting and running, you know, different gauge wire to and utilizing it for different means, but typically a lighting pole is not going to cost that much. So I kind of think that by going through everything, I think that it really was formed to a narrative. They wanted you guys to really look at that 4,000 Kelvin fixture, because that's really what they were pushing. I just don't think, assessment wise, I would go back and ask for a revised quote, in my professional opinion, because to me it just didn't make much sense. And they also compared in saying that you needed so many poles versus in the amber, the 3,000 Kelvin versus, you know, the 4,000 that they were proposing, and that you would have to almost triple the amount of poles. But there was no photometric study done to prove that. So I don't know where those numbers came from, unless they were comparing lumen to lumen data, and you can't do that. That's why we have photometric details available, is because it really needs to be studied. You can't just put a pen and pencil and come up with a number of poles. It needs to be mapped out. So there's a lot of planning that still needs to be done, but ultimately, professionally and honestly speaking, those are going to be your two solutions. You can either continue doing your lease from FPL, you hold their feet to the fire and you tell them, we need a solution. We want to work with you. Or you say, we want to buy private sector because we want to make sure that, you know, our lighting is in our control. And those are going to be your two key solutions.
Hey, Christy, one more quick question.
Sure.
On the ownership side of it, if you go that route, are you still reliant on FP&L to install the poles and make the connections, or would that be done through a third party, a licensed?
That would be done through third parties. So essentially, the way that a typical project will run is you will have a licensed engineer involved, which will get in touch with the lighting agency, just like Cesco is, and they would map out the solution for you and find the very specific fixture that you need. If you do end up going that route, I'm going to give you a professional opinion that you need to go as specified and not allow alternates, because then your photometrics would have to be completely redone. But you'll find the correct solution that you need, and then it would either go out to bid, or if you were to go with like lighting as a service, everything would be wrapped up and it would be ran like a leasing agreement, like FPL. So there would be a contractor involved, there would be a distributor involved, the normal means of a regular construction project. That's how that would work. So no, you would not be reliant on FPL for anything. The only thing that you would be reliant for, I will take that back, is instead of a leasing agreement on fixtures and poles, you would have a metering agreement. So they would still meter your power. And your contractor would have to pull that power from a location, but essentially the town would have ownership of it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the question is, can it be achieved? And the answer is yes. So you can provide the correct amount of safety that is recommended by FDOT standards and IES standards, which is one of the organizations that when we do photometrics, we look to for information. You can be provided that by still using wildlife friendly sources. That is the answer. It's just about finding the correct resources available to make that happen. Either way, if you decide that you want to continue to go through the leasing agreement process with FPL, or whether you decide you want to do and explore the private sector, Cesco Lighting would love to partner with you any which way that you decide that you would like to go. As long as you understand the true need, evaluating the considerations that need to be taken, have a thorough design done. I'll make a point to say this. The report that was given to you, the engineering team that first did that, was exceptional. His photometrics were great. The assessment was great. I just think that all of the alternates need to be explored in the same manner that they did that 40K. And then look at your viable options. Go back and get another quote, because I don't think that quote is accurate at all. And if you are looking at private sector as an alternate, then you know, we need to start planning on that, or you guys need to take the steps forward in planning that. That way you can compare the two options, and then implementing the right strategy for Fort Myers Beach ultimately is the goal. So any which way that Cesco can help you achieve that, we're here.
Can I ask you another quick question?
Absolutely.
Based on what you said about the work that they did with the studies, could Cesco use some of the studies that they have already done on the photometrics to be able to assess what they would recommend, or would you have to do a complete redo of what they've already done?
Well, that's a good question. We would love to take what they originally did and then just plug in the amber. That way it's a complete one-for-one comparison. In order for Cesco to do that, we would need to get in touch with the engineer, or the city get in touch with the engineer that worked on that and have him send us the DWG files. That would be the easiest thing. We can also do a bird's eye aerial view and take the information that he already supplied in that report and give you a 3D model of what that would look like. And it wouldn't take us very long. It's just getting the information from the manufacturers and picking out the right fixture. That's the most important thing. Sometimes you may have it in your head that this is a fixture you want to go with, but it just doesn't work. And I think that was the problem from the original report. We just need to look and see which fixture and what wattage and which distribution would provide the best coverage. But the answer is yes.
A couple questions, Christy. This is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Now, is there like GIS information you could? I think these light fixtures and everything are already put on GIS. Would that shortcut a process to be able to do a study like this?
If we had access to, well, I don't know whose GIS files are they? Are they something that FPL owns? Because if FPL owns those GIS files, then the answer is they're probably not going to share it with you if you're looking to do private sector. The good thing is that in the report that has already been given to you guys, everything is marked where the existing locations are. So I can actually go and, like, let's say Google Earth and map everything out in real time as to where these things are located, and then plug in where, you know, your different fixtures would be. There's two ways of doing this. If you partner with FPL, we can show, okay, if you use this type of fixture with FPL, we can use the existing locations and then just add where need be. Or we can do it from scratch because FPL wouldn't be involved at that point, and mark them out accordingly to give you the best layout as possible. You're not stuck with existing locations. You can move those lighting poles around as needed. So there's two different ways you can do it depending on which route you guys would choose.
Okay. Another question too. I was kind of looking at this report, and I went onto the CRE, read the website, looked at the RSW light fixtures. Mm-hmm. Now it looks like they're talking about 30 to 50 watt lights in here, which is what, 300 to 500 K lumen? Is that
yeah, so I looked at that too I actually went through everything in preparation today, and I really studied. There's actually, they offered you three different fixtures. Okay, the RSWL, they offered to you in the amber and in the 3000 Kelvin. Okay, which is a lower lumen output and a lower wattage fixture.
Right.
The one that they actually used for your quote, and the one that they're recommending, is actually the ATBS, which is not it. The ATBS is actually a completely different manufacturer. Yeah. So the ATBS is, I think, 100, if my memory serves me right, I think it's actually 120 watts. It's a much higher lumen output fixture. That's why I said it was very skewed. So that's why they said, well, if you go with the ATBS, you only have to have so many fixtures and a small amount of poles. Whereas if you go 3000 Kelvin, or if you go amber, you have to basically quadruple the amount of fixtures and lights. Well, that's because it's a lower wattage fixture. They don't have one that they can offer that's higher wattage. So it's not really a good apple for apple comparison. It's just the solutions that they're able to provide you.
So the CRE, I saw, like, the large is, it says about 120 watts. They also have an extra large, which is twice that.
Right.
And I know you told me before that that the amber lights tend to generate more heat.
Yes.
And I assume that might limit the dissipation ability of the extra large fixture.
Well, so that is correct. Plus the ATBS, they don't offer an amber. They don't offer that fixture in amber, only the RSW, which is a completely different manufacturer. So what we need to find is a larger fixture that can produce a higher lumen output for you, but still manage the heat dissipation, as you mentioned.
So the fixtures that are under test, without getting specific about anyone, what's kind of the upper end of the lumen output for the amber fixtures that are in a salt bath?
So the roadway, the roadway fixture, which is a Philips road focus, the salt chamber testing actually took place on a 4000 Kelvin fixture because that's what we use a lot in utilities. The good thing is that we can actually do that in amber. We've requested that information from Philips as of Thursday of last week, because that fixture, by the way, is also already FWC certified. So it's already an approved fixture that we could easily flip over. So I should have all of that information back hopefully either today or tomorrow. So if you would like me to push forward and looking at a photometric study, I can definitely apply that. And I can send you that information once I receive it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Something that I did not mention, Bill, and this might be important to you from our previous conversations, is the wattage all has to do with drive and milliampage and how much power you're actually driving those diodes. The two fixtures, or I should say the three fixtures that they propose to you, are all driven at different milliampage. So we're trying to find one that will work correctly, and the only way to do that is really through photometrics.
And that's what I was kind of getting back to the housing, because I know you said that you can drive more current in an amber light, but they generate more heat, which means you have to have a housing that can dissipate the heat. So you got, it seems like a bigger housing, smaller element driven harder is probably the way it goes.
That is correct. That is correct. And something that I'll point out too, because the subject has come out in previous conversations with different people, not just in Fort Myers Beach, but in other municipalities, is hybrid lighting and the combination between amber and white lighting. And something that I will leave you with for that is, one, FWC doesn't really approve it. They will look at things case by case scenario. So this may be one of those opportunities where if that's something that is of interest, we can approach FWC and saying, listen, this is what we're looking to do. But I will say this too, when you're looking at the fixtures and the amount of upfront costs, when you have a hybrid fixture, you're having one fixture that runs both amber and white light. And so let's say you have one fixture and it has 4 different diode boards to it, where these light sources are housed. 3 of them may be amber and only 1 of them may be white. So you're really decreasing the lumen output on both ends. So sometimes it's not very cost effective to do that. And it really doesn't work as well in applications. So I thought I would put that out there too, because I know there's been some interest in that.
Christy, you'd mentioned apples to apples comparison, and previous councils have rightfully asked this question of many folks who've talked about this issue. Is there currently a community in Florida, a coastal community that has done this successfully, that has similar tendencies as Fort Myers Beach that we could look to as a model that you like?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have done it in private sector in a couple of different areas, and I can get those locations for you. If you look at the screen, you see the picture that is shown right there. That's actually El Dorado Avenue in Clearwater, Florida, and you can see that's right on the coastline. That was actually done by Duke Energy. So it is a utility company that did that. But what is something different about Duke Energy? From what I understand, because I have not personally worked with them, is they may take in consideration a certain fixture type that you're in need of, and they will allow you to utilize their poles. So I believe that they have a separate leasing agreement for their lights and poles. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but Duke Energy is the one who did that one. So it can be done. It very well can be done. So Clearwater is definitely in there, and we've actually done hybrid as well. Sesco has. I can give you that information and point you to those cities where we have done that.
Christy, are you finished with your report?
I'm sorry?
Are you finished with your report?
I have not done a formal report, no.
Your presentation for today, I mean.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any other questions from the council members of Christie?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a couple if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
With the, as you well know, with the ever-changing daily things of LED lighting, have you ever worked with any white tuning solutions or color tuning solutions in any municipalities?
Yeah, we've done color tuning everywhere. So I'm gonna get into a little bit more technical on you as well. Amber cannot be color tunable. So the biggest misconception about amber is that it's filtered, and it's not filtered. It's filtered, it is not coated. So the biggest example of this is like a yellow bug light. If I take a yellow bug light, it appears to be yellow to us. But if I take a knife and I scrape that paint off, what is the light source underneath it? It's actually white light. So when it comes to turtle-friendly applications or wildlife-friendly applications, it's not the color that's so important. It's the actual spectrum on the electromagnetic scale. So with color tunable, the way that LEDs are constructed is they're phosphorus coated. So phosphorus coated LEDs are not actually wildlife friendly. So you can't get amber in a color tunable, a true amber. You can get PC amber because it's phosphorus coated, just like RBGWs or tunable LEDs. But true amber, you can't. It's not color tunable. That was a great question.
I'm sure you're familiar with Ketra.
Yes.
So you're saying that their amber lighting is or their color, the spectrum that they can tune to, that would not be compliant with turtle specifications?
That is correct, to my knowledge.
Okay.
They can achieve a color that is amber, but it's not on the correct nanometer scale, which if you're familiar with turtle friendly or wildlife applications, they're going to require a 560 or higher. Normally it's around 590 is where most manufacturers fall on the nanometer scale.
Okay. And another quick question I have, in your opinion of doing this, have you found it better, and I won't obviously hold you to this, but have you found it better for municipality owned lighting or to go through FP&L?
Because we do business with FPL, so I don't want to say that they're horrible to work with, because they're not. They offer some great solutions for cities. In my professional and my personal opinion, I think whenever a township or a municipality has ownership of their investment, I think that that's good for you guys. It's an investment, and it's what you're putting into your community. So ultimately, if I was making even a personal investment, I would want to make sure that I have control over that.
Understood. And then just I have a quick question for Roger. The DWG files that she mentioned from this last study, do we have ownership of that, or does that belong to FP&L?
Well, it's been a while since we talked to the consultant who produced the study, so we'll have to see what we have on file, and we'd like to share everything we have on file with Christy, and anything we don't have on file, we'll ask them for a copy of, and hopefully it'll be cooperative and provide it.
Right.
I would say, looking at the report, to my understanding and the conversation that I had with Chelsea and Roger last week, the engineer that actually did the report and started the report off, I believe should probably have ownership, because FPL, I think, partnered with them. But I believe that you guys hired that engineer separately. Is that correct?
It was actually the MPO who hired.
Okay.
Well, they worked for a government agency, so I would think we could work through the MPO who was client to get it.
Yeah. And like I said, even if I don't have the DWGs, we can still start running photometrics in comparison. That's no problem. It just takes a little bit more time.
Any more questions, Dan?
No, that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys very, very much.
Hold on a second, Christy.
I don't have a question, but I have a couple of comments. Christy, first of all, I'd like to compliment you on your presentation. I found you to be very forthcoming. So often people come in and they speak politically correct phrases to us. You were very polite in dealing with the various entities, the report, etc. But I believe you were very honest in what you reported to us. And that's a very fine tightrope for you to walk, and I appreciate your honesty. And just as far as, it would seem that one of the first things that we need to do at this point, process-wise, is decide which direction we're going to go, which is why you presented the FPL versus private option for us. And I guess at this point, in case you have some comment to make about what I say, I'd like to say it while you're here. I was in communication with FPL more than 6 years ago when we were having discussions about lighting. My experience with them was not good. They were basically telling us that they would do nothing for us, that it was a take it or leave it situation. So my prior experience with them was not good. I am more inclined to say that I would vote with going with the private option, even if it means that it might cost us more. I appreciate that Jim came up with the idea of holding FPL's feet to the fire. The only problem with doing that is even if they bend to our will currently, we're still stuck with them later on when we might have future problems. And their reputation, as far as I'm concerned, is that they haven't been very, very pliable about working with us. So I don't know if you have any comment about that or not.
I would say I completely understand. I really do. I've seen a lot in many different communities. I think honestly speaking about FPL in this situation, I don't think they have the knowledge and the experience when it comes to this type of lighting to where they feel comfortable offering a viable solution on their own. But if they would just open the doors to that partnership and allow somebody to assist them and offering you the solution, that's probably what's most important. But you're not alone. I've dealt with many cities that have the same situation. So I wish you guys the best when it comes to making your decision. And like I said, if I can be of any help going forward, by all means, please let me know.
Thank you. Christy, I'd like to ask you one quick question. If you use private lighting and poles, are the poles hardened?
You mean what type of materials are they made out of?
Yes.
Like hurricane hardened.
I don't really understand. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, we would require them to meet hurricane standards for installation.
Right.
So that would be one of our criteria.
Absolutely. And you're going to want to make sure, and we do that on a regular basis. So when we do our photometric detail, we can give you those pole options too. And they can be made out of many different materials, but ultimately they will meet wind mitigation requirements. That's something we have to meet for wind mit. And then also installation that information is also given to whoever the contractor is of how deep and whatnot to meet those hurricane requirements. Yes, that's part of the requirements we have to meet.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Town Manager, where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's important for us to have a detailed discussion. I don't know if you want to have it today about the subject, but I think there's a concern because if we go with a lease purchase arrangement through the private sector, you're in a situation where the outlay to town may be more money. That may not be an important consideration, but I think that we can go forward with putting something out. And by the way, it doesn't have to be where it's own FPL or it's not private companies. It can be both. We can put something out that everyone could submit on and go from there. The question is the design criteria, and with that, we could start a selection to pick a company to do that for us, or if the council's comfortable, Christy and her company, we could bring a waiver of bid and hire them to do the criteria.
What is our relationship with Sesco at the moment?
Right now, it's, I spent a lot of time talking with Christy about this subject, Mr. Mayor, because I wanted to be certain that she, through her presentation, did not inadvertently create sort of a sole source situation.
Mm-hmm.
That was our initial hesitancy with bringing her and her company forward for presentation purposes. We had a very lengthy conversation about it and spent a lot of time discussing that. I think she's done a great job today in avoiding that pitfall.
Thank you.
Where she didn't come in and say, well, if you got bought, GE bulb 24, your problems would all be solved. And by the way, I'm the only one who reps GE 24 bulbs. So that being said, we need to have someone put forward criteria for the next step. We could do that two ways. We could do an open solicitation of lighting consultants, or if the council's comfortable with Christy and her company, we could bring forward a bid waiver to hire them to do that.
How do you feel about that, Council?
Sorry, Mayor, maybe we should let Christy go and have a discussion among ourselves about how to go forward.
I thought about that as well. We could do that.
I appreciate that. And I'll just add to that too, so that way you guys understand where Sesco fits. So we work with engineers, we work with municipalities, we work with utilities. So we're very versatile. So whichever way that you guys decide to go, we would honestly love to help out. So by all means, please contact me. Let me know how everything goes. And if you guys have any further questions, and I appreciate your time.
Well, we thank you very much, Christy. It was a very nice presentation, and we appreciate you joining us.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Christy.
Okay. Christy is gone. So do we want to continue this conversation, or do we want to set up a future date to hash this out again?
Mr. Mayor, I'm with Vice Mayor Hossafras on supporting the avenue of owning it outright versus, or even a combination, as Roger mentioned. She brought up a lot of valid points, and with the longevity of LED lighting, the maintenance costs could be much less than they were in the past. I also agree with Roger's concern about, I did notice that although she didn't specify a specific bulb, she did make the comment that we should go with whatever's recommended, to not essentially have any input as to what we did. So I would support looking at other companies, not just Sesco, at getting a couple of inputs from them, as Roger suggested.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Bill, you look like you're ready.
I'm ready. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to me is I think we should pursue multiple avenues on this because, the loss of the poles will increase the cost. I do think, though, that, the hardening of the power poles is more important than the hardening of the lights, because after a hurricane, I probably want air conditioning more than I want streetlights. And that comes right down to cost. What kind of pole do they need? And I assume that the standards for street lighting is different than it is for especially the main power lines going down the road. So I think we should keep. And the other thing is that FP&L, I think there's a little bit of maybe, let's say, arrogance there, because they think we have no choice. So whatever they offer, that's what we have to take. And I think if we demonstrate that we are looking at or leaning towards other options, that may get them off the fence and help us get what we need from them. Thirdly, and I'm going to probably be saying this a lot as we go through some of the other projects we're working on, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm imagining after this coronavirus, try to get out of the recession, there will be a 2008 style stimulus package, and there will be grants available. So the closer this and our other projects we can get to being shovel ready, the better off we may be if these grants do materialize. And we're fortunate enough to have Roger, who has experience in sniffing out grants and getting them. So, I think making some decisions and going forward with the design as far as practical, I think would behoove us and maybe save us a lot of money in the long run.
Thank you. Anyone else? So what's our consensus then today? Is it to move forward and get other proposals from other outfits, or is everybody happy with Christie? I think I'm hearing that the consensus is to get some other proposals and look at it that way. Am I correct?
Mr. Mayor, I'm comfortable with seeking other proposals as well. Not that Christie doesn't have an interesting proposal. I am also I'm always troubled by the incumbent utilities monopoly status and the power and the sort of the swagger that they hold. But at the same time, from a fiscal standpoint, if there's a way that companies like Christie's could partner with FP&L, that might be a fiscally more responsible solution as well. At least it's certainly worth exploring. And the other piece of this, of course, and we'll get into this when we talk about Bayside Park, is that we have a lot of interesting and important needs on this island. Lighting is certainly one of the most critical, but we've talked a lot about Times Square. We've talked a lot about the park. We've talked a lot about Bay Oaks. I think at some point we need to, at an M&P meeting, have an analysis of what the costs are going to be for each one of these proposals, and then begin as a council to prioritize and then put together some kind of a plan. We're sort of shooting from the hip right now, it appears, and some of that's just because of the volatility of the situation with respect to the virus, and the lighting piece has certainly become much more complex and maybe a significant fiscal impact. And again, certainly a worthy one. But again, as we look at, we have 3 new members of the council. As we look at this new park, we look at a building on this park, and I'm not sure what the entire fiscal of that whole park proposal is. And again, not that it's not important, but we need to sort of look at it in conjunction with all the other ideas that we're wrestling with, and then begin to prioritize. And I think a good M&P meeting where we get a sense of where all these fiscal challenges are and prioritize and put together a plan. Might be helpful, particularly to the newer council members.
Thank you, Jim.
At this point, I think we might be able to short circuit this, because to me, the answer seems to be pretty obvious, that the lighting is the most important thing that we have. And until we go through a new budgetary session this summer, et cetera, and know more about our current situation, I would be willing to say that this is our #1 priority, and everything else is kind of on the back burner.
Okay.
It does sound like a, sorry, it does sound like a, isn't that kind of what the M&P is for, is to talk and prioritize these sort of things?
Yes. Yes. Okay, Roger, did you, we managed to glean some direction from that discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We will set up a discussion of the town's capital plan for the council. I don't know if it'll be ready for the first M&P in May, the M&P in May, but if not, we may have to set up a special one, but or include in the council meeting. But I hear the desire to get that done.
Well, no, I understand that part of it, but the part about the lighting also.
Yes.
You're going to put that out to other companies?
Yes, we will.
Very good. Excuse me. Okay.
And I don't know if there's, if going on with the photometric study is something that Chrissy would charge with, or whether she does it as part of her, marketing, if you will. But I think it's worth looking and seeing if we do have legal rights to the DWG files, that we can get to her to make this quicker and easier for her.
And Bill, along those lines, it'd be nice if Christy could maybe give us a couple estimates in terms of cost, just so we have some idea of what we're facing.
It seems to me she would probably
be careful if we're going to go out and allow Christy to protect her proprietary solution that she might be offering the town. So let's be careful about that, so she doesn't face unfair competitive advantage of using someone else being able to piggyback on her expertise, and then she doesn't get the job. Yeah, that's fair, Roger. Maybe you could, just based upon your analysis thus far, give us a ballpark number of at least some of the options fiscal would be. So at least we have some sense of, again, trying to prioritize all these various challenges that we face.
Very good.
We'll ask for that information as part of the RFP process.
Well, that was a great conversation, and Christy sure added a lot to it on her proposal basis. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Bay Road permanent easement. This is to accept the voluntary public sidewalk easement from Beach United Methodist Church, Inc. on Bay Road for continuity of public sidewalk purposes and preservation of parking. Roger?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, this goes with the associated with the project to build sidewalks connecting Estero Boulevard to basically the elementary school. When we were doing the engineering, we realized we had a conflict with the Methodist Church, Beach United, frankly, with the help of the vice mayor, we were able to get in touch with the pastor and work out a solution that met his needs and allowed the project to go forward in the most effective and efficient way. And through their generosity, they're going to give us an easement, which allows us to retain 5 out of the 7 parking spots out there and yet provide a sidewalk to accomplish the project objectives. So we think it's a win-win situation, and the church itself is behind it by virtue of their voluntary execution of the easement. So I think we're in good shape here, and I hope the council agrees.
Very good. Very ecumenical on your part, Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Roger. The church folks were very happy in working with the town once the talk started, and that everybody seems to be happy that the process was successful. And having said that, I'd move to accept the easement.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been seconded by Councilman Allers. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of points. Just it's for clarification that there were 7 parking spots in front of the church that were not metered, that
That's
were
correct.
they were in the right of way, and that were free to anybody to use. And the church used those on Sundays for their services. But other people did
They
too.
are not completely in the right of way, Bill. They're partially owned by the church, is my understanding, and partially in the right of way.
And so when the okay, I've heard different than that too. But so when the sidewalk is going to go through as planned, it would have bisected right through the parking spots and taken them all out. And so by doing this easement, you're moving the sidewalk in and preserving those parking spots. And now they will be completely in the right of way, or will they be partially in the church land or partially in the right of way?
The outside spots of the 7 spots is where the Mirandering will transition from the right of way onto the church's property. And then it'll Miranda back out into the right of way.
Right. So the actual physical parking spots, not the sidewalk, because I looked at the map and there's a sidewalk and then there's also an additional easement on the road side of the sidewalk. And so I assume that the parking spots will be partially in that easement land and partially in the right of way.
The parking spots will remain bifurcated on town right of way and the church's property. But we're not,
Okay.
that property line is not moving. We're just getting the right to build the sidewalk where it turns into the church's property and then it turns back out. That's where they're giving us the easement.
Okay. So the area between that sidewalk and the right of way is not part of the easement?
No, that'll be retained for the 5 parking spots.
Okay. And now you're going to put meters in those parking spots. Is that correct?
Yes, because other than when the church is in service, they're being used by the public.
And in this, so that's a separate agreement. So there's nothing in this vacation, this grant of easement that specifically allows them to use those parking spots during services?
That's our commitment to the pastor that I made, that we would not infringe upon the church's right to conduct services and use that parking for that purpose.
And will that be in writing, or is that just an agreement that could be lost, a verbal agreement that could be lost?
I don't believe it's going to be lost because it's in the agenda item as part of public record.
Okay. And now, is this setting any kind of precedent by is there any kind of limitations on where the town is allowed to put metered parking along its right of way?
Only the 5 of you.
Okay. All right, well, those are my questions.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the RFQ-19-06-PW, which is the Bayside Park design, to allocate and appropriate funds from Fund 41 Community Enhancement Projects in the amount of $197,700 to approve an amendment to the contract with DRMP Inc. for Phase 2B, Bayside Park design, including civil drawings, permitting, biddable documents, etc., for Bayside Park Site B, starting in fiscal year 20 and ending in fiscal year 2021. Is there a motion to approve this allocation of funds? Allocation and appropriation?
My gut reaction at this point would be that we postpone this while we're in this current emergency situation and see, in a few weeks how things are looking. I don't see that there's a problem with postponing this.
Anyone else?
I don't disagree with the vice mayor on that at all.
My only concern is, again, if there ever, if we push this back and if there's ever some stimulus money, that if we're too far back in the design process, then we'll be out of the running for it.
So before,
Yeah, I'm
Go
gonna,
ahead. Sorry, Roger, go ahead.
I'm sorry to butt in. There is a timing element the council may be concerned about or not, and that is that we do, as you recall, when the prior council considered the design concept, you were discussing at that point, the elevated structure at the end of the park with the underneath viewing corridor and then the elevated viewing corridor as part of this above ground structure. At that time, we were talking about that structure being utilized for the purposes of upland facilities for the mooring field. The current mooring field agreement has an end date that we're trying to work around. If the council decides that this will be postponed, it will probably mean that we will need to seek a formal extension of that agreement with the current provider, which you may be comfortable with doing. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that as you deliberate.
Roger, it wasn't my impression that we would be able to get this accomplished within the current contract anyway.
That's true. We were actually hoping that under the best timing scenario, the early finish date, Madam Vice Mayor, we thought we would possibly be about 30 days, beyond the current contract expiration. But clearly, if you postpone it, that 30 days will become however plus whatever you postpone this by. But we thought under early finish scenario, we might be able to have the structure in within 30 days beyond the current contract expiration. So the extension would only be for a 30-day period under the best timing scenario.
Roger, if we approve this allocation, what would the actual effect be on our budget?
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is the money that the council set aside for community improvements. We said we would not use it for anything without consulting with the council and having you specifically approve an allocation to be utilized for a project. As you may recall, we were able to put the money together to start the design on Times Square without utilizing this money. So it's in our budget. It's unutilized. If it went all the way through the end of the fiscal year, it would be carried over into next fiscal year. If you feel the timing's not right to embark on this project, I think there's some merits to Councilor Veach's comment that if the federal government does get to the point where they can start emphasize government and other infrastructure projects to rebuild the economy, it would be great to have projects waiting to go to construction.
I agree.
Roger, one more question. But if we, and I've heard this a couple times. First off, you have a ballpark figure about how much this will actually cost to complete, not just the design? And the other is, has any kind of fiscal analysis been done on the income from the mooring fields and the cost of this building?
Yeah, well, yes and yes. So, conceptually, the number we have for the park right now, and again, this would be actually, we would have an engineer's estimate once we did the design, but as a placeholder, we've on a back of the envelope type of calculation, we've said it would be, approaching $1 million for the park design. And as it pertains to the other part of your question, I thought I had given myself a note here. Just give me a second, I might be able to find it. So And clearly things are down the last 60, 45, 60 days because of, but on a typical year, we would be spending $89,000 with the private provider. So our analysis of that number is that we could do the staff augmentation that would be needed to be done to staff the facility and still contribute a significant sum to paying back that $1 million from what we currently pay the external provider.
Okay, so now I think I heard some time ago that the agreement with the current provider is they get like 50% of the revenues, is it? Or more from the mooring field?
I don't believe it's exactly 50-50.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification. Madam Vice Mayor, as the liaison to the Anchorage Advisory Committee, is the Anchorage Advisory Committee, are they all on board with bringing this operation in-house, and do they support the plans as currently designed for the new park?
The Anchorage Advisory Committee has not been meeting, so they are watching these things happen but have not had the opportunity to give input. I would say in a general way they are supportive, but cautiously supportive. But again, they haven't met since the last presentation that we had about this project.
Okay, I just was curious if just conceptually, if they're in support of bringing these operations in-house and not using a third-party provider.
They were the ones who actually recommended it, if that's my recollections.
They were in favor of it, but not necessarily at this site. Some of them were in favor of it at this site. But again, I don't want to speak for the entire committee since they haven't met since the last time we went over these plans.
Just was curious if they'd seen the plans and if they were supportive, and just a point of information.
They are also under the Sunshine Law, so they can't communicate with each other, and they haven't communicated with me.
Okay.
Now, just I was at a meeting with the Anchorage Committee and Crab and the designers for this some time ago. I don't know, some months ago. And the Anchorage Committee members, they came in force, and they were the one who proposed putting the building there. Now, I don't know if that, if that means there's consensus, if that you can take that as consensus, but they were the ones who drove this initially, before there was this design.
They did speak in favor of a building, but whether they think this building is the right size, too big, too small, they haven't had a chance to opine on that.
Yeah.
It appears to me that we have, from the public comment, that a lot of merchants in that area are not 100% on board with the design or the location. If the Anchorage Committee has not had a chance to view these plans, I think it would behoove us to allow them to see it, maybe get some input from them and the merchants in the area as to the feel as far as putting the services there and the town taking it over.
Well, one point that I have made to the merchants in the area is that they've had 4 or 5 opportunities to come in while we were planning this, and they did not participate in the process then.
Exactly.
In addition, they seem to be under a misapprehension that this building is only for the mooring field, which if you were present at those presentations, you know that it's not just for the mooring field, that there are, I would say, many aspects of this building that are going to be open to the public, including an observation deck on the top, a stage area underneath. So they don't have, I would ask them that they go back and please watch the prior presentations regarding this project.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to say for the record that when this was last discussed, I believe we received a letter on behalf of the committee from the Anchorage chairperson. And my interpretation of that letter, this was the meeting of the last council, was supportive for the concept of having the upland facility there. Now, I want to be clear, we don't have a floor plan for the guts of this building yet because we don't have a design yet. We have a location, we have the four corners of the building. And if the council decides to go forward with the design, of course, the consultant will be meeting as they develop 30% plans and 60%, 90% plans with both the committee, council, and potentially other stakeholders as that process evolves, if you decide that it should move forward.
Roger,
okay, Dan, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. If we were to move forward with this, my understanding is a 60%, 90% kind of thing. At the 60% presentation of the design, what is the likelihood? I mean, that's quite a far way into it. What is the likelihood of at that presentation, if the merchants were to come forward based on that design and have a lot of feedback, or anybody, pro or con, to essentially start again or start 40% of it again?
Well, there'll be 30% review, but as well. But even clearly, if there are substantial comments that that result in redesign, there'll be some additional cost. I think, with all due respect to the merchants, I know I listened to the letters read in the record, and I've listened to the email comments I received leading up to the meeting. There's a couple things. One is that the park in its current state has basically been an extension of premises for them for all intents and purposes. It's not really, property's not actively being utilized. Two is they've had the the town made a decision to give away the riparian rights. I don't know if that was a great decision, but it was a decision that was made. We're doing what we can within our property that we retain control of. Clearly, if we put a dock there, that's going to be an obstacle that people will have to navigate around. But we're within the setbacks that are allowable by the state government. Not asking for any waivers, we're just staying within sort of our right-of-way. And it is our right-of-way, just like it is our property. So I think that, you have to decide if that property should be developed for the use of everybody in the town as a town amenity. And we'll be a good neighbor, as we always are, with what we do. And we'll listen to their input very carefully and try to accommodate it as best as we can. But to say that we can't use our property because they don't like what we're doing, I don't know that that's really good government per se.
I don't disagree with you. You had mentioned a 30%. I don't see anywhere in our packet a 30% meeting. I see 60, 90, and 100. What would happen at the 30% design phase?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's that we will amend the agreement to bring in a 30% design phase and have a presentation of those so that these concerns can be aired if there are any. I don't want to get to 60% and find out that we have a concern. So I think it's much better to, if there are actual or perceived concerns, let's deal with it at the 30% level.
Okay. And I agree with you, Madam Mayor, the Vice Mayor, that there has been a lot of information out there for people to get their comment in, and some have chosen not to. So I agree with you 100% that people have had adequate time to merchant or non-merchant put their input into this design.
Yeah, and I concur too. I was looking through my notes from the Community Resource Advisory Board, and we were giving suggestions on this a year ago. So it's been around for a while. And I'd also encourage these owners and the people with businesses around there to really look at these designs, because it is a vast improvement. The idea of blocking the view, you have a structure, but it's going to be raised up like so much is, and it'll all be open underneath with the observation deck. and it will be an attraction. It'll be an enhancement for their area. It'll bring more people down, and I think it's a good thing for them. I have heard the one thing that came out a lot was that they're concerned about the dinghy dock interfering with the traffic into the docks that are there existing. And for good or bad, the town granted them rights to build their docks right up to the riparian lines. And so it is a bit tight. And I'm not sure if the Anchorage Committee, or they think of the design if they knew that there may not be a dinghy dock, or it may not be approvable by the DEP.
Aren't we still retaining the other dinghy dock as well, though, Roger? So if
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of your statement. You broke up a little bit.
We are still retaining the other dinghy dock. This would just be a smaller one that could be used as well. Isn't that correct?
Well, we're retaining the other one, and I don't want to say smaller or not smaller, but I think here's the point. The point is that the private property owners have created docks that face into our, call it, right-of-way. And we have the right to use our right-of-way. And their captains of their vessels who use those docks will have to navigate around our dock. I don't really think it's an issue for the dinghy dock people. I think it might be an issue if they put a large vessel in those particular docks. Now they have other docks they could put large vessels in, and today they can do it because we don't have any physical impediment. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be allowed to put something within our right of way if that's in the best interest of the town. Already, as I think Nallers mentioned, they were able to go out to their property beyond what they normally would have been allowed to. So they've maximized their use, and we've showed them these plans. If this goes all the way back, and Mayor Murphy and Vice Mayor Pasfas, remember when we had a private party who wanted to bring their water taxi in from Cape Coral, that hotel, and we were trying to see that whether we could accommodate them. And what we learned was, and they were actually going to help us financially build this dock. And what we found out was that we couldn't accommodate them within our right of way. So therefore we had those conversations had to be abandoned, because we understand we have to stay within our area. And our adjacent property owners, like I said, will be good neighbors, but we'll have to figure out a way to stay within their area and the shared areas that we have between both of us.
Okay, Council, I'm going to make a motion.
There to accommodate them.
I'm going to make a motion at this point that we allocate and appropriate the funds from Fund 41 Community Enhancement Projects in the amount of $197,700. Is there a second?
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, I believe the town manager offered to amend this proposal to a 30%, so we wouldn't have to allocate that large a sum. Unless I misunderstood.
No, I think what I was trying to say, Madam Vice Mayor, is that we will create a 30% design reporting phase in the project. And I will hold the consultant that there will be no increase to the sum. We have the right to truncate the project at any time. So, if at 30% the council's unhappy, or the committee's unhappy, or the community's unhappy, we could stop it. But we'd like to allocate the entire amount, and we would like to build in a 30% Anchorage Committee and council review of the design.
Okay, I'll amend the motion to include those two stipulations just added by Roger. Is there a second to the motion?
I will second it with that amendment.
Okay, thank you very much. Discussion.
I've got one thing, and I don't know, this is kind of related to the motion is, when is it, when can we make a comment on some slight changes? Because I was watching the council meeting when they took away one of Roxanne's precious trees to make an opening view corridor down Old San Carlos Boulevard. I've been to a couple of places where they have these, big letters, things like, Amsterdam, and colored letters, and the tourists will go on them. Now since that meeting, we now have this logo. And in that space, down the viewing corridor, I think it would be great PR and benefit to have a big FMB logo so that everyone takes a picture from that viewing platform that our name is out there. And
yeah, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to amend as we go along with this project on something like that. Don't you agree, Mr. Town Manager?
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, if you recall, they showed a compass and some other types of surface treatments, and clearly we could put a mural on the building, and we could put what I'll call a statue for purposes of describing the FMB type of raised lettering. So we could look at doing all of that and offering some alternatives. So I don't really see that as something that would prevent the project from going forward. And something that can be incorporated.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I was just going to say,
Yes,
it sounds like we've shifted our strategic discussion from the M&P meeting in the future to today. I guess I have a couple questions with respect to prioritization. We're in the middle of an emergency situation. We're going to spend $1 million on this park. Again, understand all the arguments in support of it, but we've yet to see the fiscal impact of this emergency on the town's revenue stream. We've yet
Well, that's why I inquired of the town manager earlier, Jim.
Right, but he has. I don't think he answered the question.
No, okay.
Second of all, I think we haven't yet to discuss what steps we're going to take for economic recovery, and some of those steps may have a fiscal impact. For example, a lot of folks have suggested suspending parking fees for the summer and the fall to stimulate folks to come back to the island and to encourage economic development. That's going to have a fiscal impact on the town. Something worthy of conversation and consideration. Times Square, how's that going to be funded? Well, possibly TDC funding. We're not sure yet. We don't know. We have a lighting dynamic here that everybody agrees is a priority. That we've seen estimates that are quite extraordinary. Now, our speaker today said those estimates may be exaggerated, but still they're going to be significant. And it looks like the town's going to have to reach into its pocket to help offset those costs. All again, valid projects. It might be helpful, I think, still to look at this in the aggregate and have a conversation about those priorities. All wonderful ideas and wonderful priorities, particularly given the times that we're in. So I'm just a little concerned about moving forward on this project, not necessarily as a result of the project itself, but just balancing it with all the other priorities and challenges that we face as a community, and not having an opportunity in an M&P meeting to sort of really sit down and have frank conversations, get fiscal impacts, and what's the cost of Times Square? What's the cost estimate of Bay Oaks? What's the cost estimate of the lighting? What's the fiscal impact of this emergency on the town's revenue stream, et cetera? It seems like we should look at that in the aggregate and then make some decisions based upon that information that we're all provided in the aggregate. But that's just a thought.
And those are all good thoughts. I appreciate that. Any other further comments?
Have we applied for TDC funding for any of this, the Bayfront Park stuff?
Bill, it would be my gut reaction that this project probably would not qualify.
And I understand that they like things that are waterfront, which this is. Is a building probably the monkey in the wrench that would keep it from being qualified?
They have all kinds of bizarre, for example, you're not allowed to buy a picnic table with TDC funds. There are all these bizarre rules that apply to how those funds are used. And I would just guess that most of this project would not qualify.
Okay.
So to perhaps answer the previous question from Councilor Aderholt. So our current plan is to try to work with the TDC on the Times Square project. And therefore, of the projects, the main projects we have been talking about, you have Bayside Park, you have Bay Oaks, and you have the street lighting. Our approach to the street lighting is we would try to fashion a deal where it would be a lease purchase, so we would not, if we wind up going with a private sector thing, so it would closely replicate really what FPL would be doing, with the exception is we would not be able to get the federal rebates. We'd have to write a check. As pertains to Bayside Park and Bay Oaks, if we build the comprehensive plan and we can get the school property under management, potentially those two projects are $10 million. The debt service for those are probably, I jotted down a number I had calculated here, would probably be $565,000 for 25 years. So if we go forward and build both of those projects, we're going to have a $300,000 a year number hole in the budget that we're going to have to fill somehow. So those are the things that we're looking at in terms of if and when we get to construction, and that assumes 0 grants for those two projects. So we're working towards getting things ready so that, and we may have to wait a year till we actually construct the project because of recovery or other financial concerns, but you can't do anything unless you have plans. And unless it's a situation where the plans are going to change, I think it's advantageous to have plans on the shelf, as was mentioned earlier.
Roger, would you comment on your estimate, and I know it's early, but the fiscal impact of this coronavirus on the town's revenue stream, as well as the potential for costs due to the town's enactment of economic recovery measures? Have you given any thought to that, or what's your sense of things?
Well, in terms of the current year budget, our financial hit, if you will, is primarily in our parking fees due to the timing of when this occurred. Most of our other collections have come in well ahead of, a 1/12 basis. So we're actually in very good positions. We're, from a staff perspective and just a spending money perspective, we're being extremely conservative right now in terms of what we're spending money on in terms of the town's day-to-day operations. So I think we're going to get through this year okay. I really believe that. How this will impact next year? Well, clearly, if we enter a fiscal year under an economic downturn, it's going to have somewhat of an effect, and we'll give you some budgetary options to deal with that. And that may be taking a project like this and saying, great, we have the plans. We're not going to, normally we go from plans to bidding and construction. We may wait to go to bidding and construction. But the terms of the businesses, right now we're not contemplating reducing taxes to help the businesses, or reducing water rates to help the businesses, or reducing stormwater rates to help the businesses, if that's the underlying question. If you reduce parking fees to stimulate business, it's something you could do, but at the end of the day, just remember that your parking surplus helps you keep the millage rate down. So you really do that, you're just really either reducing services or forcing your millage to go up.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the question on this motion. I think we've discussed this. The motion was to allocate and appropriate funds from Fund 41 Community Enhancement Projects in the amount of $197,700. It was moved, it was seconded, it's been discussed. I'll say all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
1, 2.
Aye.
3.
I'll vote for it because of the fact that we've inserted the 30% review.
Okay, that's 4, Jim?
Nay.
Nay, okay, good enough. The motion carries 4-1 with Councilman Adderholt dissenting. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Going to turn it back to you, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 email comments that have come in.
Okay.
One is from Len Lemmer.
Then again.
Yes. Good morning. In addition to the email I submitted, I sought to make a public comment. I did not hear that I was recognized to speak. This meeting ended up being a real problem for the public. I am not seeking to place any blame or on anyone at all. The only point I want to make is, because of this COVID-19 circumstances, we cannot have a rational discussion about pending items. For this reason, all items must be put on hold until regular order is resumed. 3 points I wanted to make regarding Bayside Park are these. Number 1, once a building is erected, it will be there forever. The view out over the bay is lost forever. Number 2, the second point is a question. Would the town make this expenditure if you would have to pay for it all by yourselves? If not, why not? Number 3, lastly, is a comment. The Bayside Park should be designed to accommodate the most different events possible. Therefore, modular design is important. Example, the present design calls for a fixed stage and fixed benches. The stage should be modular and there should be no fixed seating. In conclusion, I apologize for not being involved earlier. Please understand restaurants on Fort Myers Beach earn almost 50% of their yearly income in March. We are extremely busy and our focus is on our businesses. Thank you, Len Lemmer.
Thank you again, Mr. Lemmer.
And the second one is from William ohrum@gmail.com. I wholeheartedly agree with the council's decision to close the beaches and parks in March. Now, however, the tourists have left and the beach is a ghost town. Local businesses are being severely impacted, as are other businesses across the nation. Please consider opening the beach to walking, swimming, and exercising. If we can walk down the sidewalk, there is no reason why we can't sustain the same social distancing on the beach. Thank you. William Oram, resident, Bay Beach Lane. And that concludes the public comment I've received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is town manager's items. Roger?
Mr. Mayor, are there any in the, not to interrupt, but are there any in the waiting room?
I don't know. The clerk didn't say that, but you could. Michelle, were there any in the Zoom waiting room?
Oh, look at that.
Look at what?
Yes, I was.
My screen is full of names.
Oh, really? Oh, let's see that. What?
Yes, I was.
My screen is full of names.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well, we were not allowed to be in it until just now. We were not allowed to be in it until just now.
It sounds like somebody is watching this on TV and has their microphone on, so there's a huge delay.
Yeah, I agree. I think if people could mute their microphone when they get brought into the room, there's a lot of latency going on there between when you pull them up and when they actually hear you. Mute their microphone when they get brought into the room. There's a lot of latency going on there between when you pull them up and when they actually hear you.
Like hearing Dan just repeat what he said.
Yeah.
How are we doing there, Madam Clerk?
Well, Mayor Murphy, would you like me to identify who I'm seeing waiting to speak?
Yeah, why don't you?
Roland, Weinmann, would like to make public comment.
Let's try bringing them in.
Hi there, it's Bev Milligan. Actually, I'm on Roland's computer and I didn't realize that joining the Zoom meeting was going to qualify me for public comment. But that said, here I am. So hello, and I guess the concern, first of all, it's just wonderful to hear this new council. It's just pretty exciting, and I think you're going to do great things. That said, I agree absolutely with Jim and your concerns with respect to budgeting anything. Certainly, we at Meyer's side have zero income and are negotiating down any spending. If we can save 10 cents right now, the zero incentive is not to and are negotiating down the business that we have or any of our properties. So fiscal restraint, I think, was an extraordinarily powerful comment, and we wholeheartedly agree with it. The only other thought that we have heard and has been talked about to a very large degree is the beach issue. And I wholly trust the council will do the right thing when they think it is, but I do strongly encourage you to make your decisions equitable with the other councils on Sanibel and Bonita and around us. Otherwise, we're put into a very, very difficult position. And I think a lot of the business owners right now feel tremendously angry because they feel it is inequitable across the beachfronts in Southwest Florida. So I would ask you to revisit that very, very regularly and at least make our financial and business positions equitable with others up and down the coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev.
I see Chuck Bodenhafer. Are you wanting to make public comment, Mr. Bodenhafer? Apparently not. There's a person named Jean, Jean. Are you wanting to make public comment? Apparently not. There's a person named Jean, Jean.
Okay, let's move on, Michelle.
And I see George's iPad, but I don't know if they're wanting to make public comments or not.
I have a feeling.
I have no others. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Wanting to make public comments or not.
We'll move on next to the town manager's items. Roger?
Mayor, members of the council, I just wanted to, perhaps you are not aware of this yet, that it's my understanding that the governor is going to implement his efforts to restart the state's economy, kicking that off at I believe it's 2 p.m. today. And as typical, I will, as I receive information about what is discussed and what his initiatives are, I will share them with all members of the council. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And I believe the council received the letters I received from the emails and from the chamber and from Sunstreams regarding the 90 days. So I guess that covers everything I have for you this morning.
Okay, thank you, sir. The town attorney's items. John Herron, are you still up there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'd be very brief. At the request of staff, I'm going to be asking at this point for your authorization to initiate legal proceedings against two of the vessels that are in our mooring field who have way past due as it relates to what they owe, and frankly, from every indication that we have, both vessels have been abandoned. It's the motor vessel Moonraker and the motor vessel Halo. In one instance, the owner of Moonraker is close to $10,000 in arrears, and I think the Halo motor vessel is about $4,000 in arrears, and so asking for your authorization to initiate legal proceedings to have those vessels declared derelict and to have them removed from our mooring field.
Does anyone have an objection to Mr. Heron moving forward with that?
No.
No.
Okay, John, there's your direction.
All right. Two other things. We recently, and I will be circulating this to you all in the next 24 hours, received a ruling in the Jameson matter that's being handled by outside counsel appointed by the League of Cities. You may recall the Jameson matter involves the wetlands property close on the Bayside. The property owner brought an inverse condemnation claim against the town. Initially, we proceeded on we prevailed on some procedural issues on a motion for summary judgment. The court has indicated that the property owners have made at least a claim that should be considered by the trial court. So they've sent it back for the trial court to make a decision. We are coordinating, obviously, with outside counsel, and as additional information comes forward and potentially the need for an executive session is out there, we will certainly be asking for that. But just want to make you aware of that. And last but not least, certainly with regard to the new nation status report. Currently, there are 10, I take that back, 9 active matters stages, some of them which are in process of being settled, and that'll all be set forth in the litigation report. And once you all receive it, certainly feel free to give me a call. I don't want to go into too much detail because there's some strategy issues there. But once you do receive it, feel free to give me a call. That's it.
Did everybody get that last bit that John said, council members? You want him to repeat that?
Yeah, I didn't get, some of it was breaking up. I didn't get all of it.
John, if you wouldn't mind, your last item, if you would please repeat that.
Yes, we prepared a status report on current litigation, which I'll be circulating to all the council members, looking forth or setting forth all the current litigation the town is involved in. About 9 cases that are in various stages. Some of them are literally or implementing settlements. Some of them are starting, and some of them are sitting because we're the defendant. But that's all set forth in that litigation report that we'll be distributing. And when you do receive it, if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. Don't want to go into too much discussion about the contents of the litigation report because there are some attorney-client communications there that if you have any questions, I prefer to have them offline.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions of the town attorney? Besides, why is he driving around talking to us?
I at least it killed the video, so you didn't have to see all the trees go by over my shoulder.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing the same to get away from these dogs. But anyhow, okay, thank you, John, and drive carefully.
Thank you.
The next item is council members' items and reports. Before we get on with the individual reports, there is one item on the agenda for us to decide here, and that's we need a motion to designate a council representative to serve on the policy committee for the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program. Is there a if there's no one interested, I would be interested in doing this, but I don't have to if someone else has a burning desire.
I would be interested. It's kind of right up my alley.
Okay, Bill, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, I'll make a motion to designate Councilman Veach as the council representative to serve on the policy committee for the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries. Congratulations, Bill. Represent us well on that. That's a very good board, and of course, it's a great program. Okay.
I'll need some kind of information, then contact information to know how to get involved.
Okay.
We'll find that to council.
Chad would be your guy to get that info from.
Who? Chad?
Chad.
And we have a lot of people here on the beach that are have a lot of experience on that board. One I can think of in particular who is a wealth of information. One day, if you want to talk to her, is Terry Kane, former council member, Vice Mayor Kane. Okay, now we'll go on to the individual items of the members. We'll start with you, Vice Mayor Hatzafos.
I have several things. I'll try to do some smaller, quick things first. One thing that I would like to discuss is the possibility, well, not the possibility, we normally take a break during the month of July. I think it would be a good idea for us all to consider that might not be happening this year due to the circumstances involved. Not that we'd be making a lot of travel plans anyway, but I just thought it would be a good idea that we all not assume that July break is going to take place. I don't know if anybody has any comment about that.
Well, I think that's something that we can probably discuss. Don't you agree, Council? We could have discussed that at one of the future meetings or M&P meetings. We put that on there as an item or so forth. Or
sure.
Agenda management item. Yeah. Okay.
Number two, I've received an email from a person who is a live-aboard boater, but not in the mooring field. We normally did pump outs for those folks, and when we had our prior discussion, we decided we were only going to provide pump outs for those that were in the mooring field. This person has informed me that all of the marinas have stopped providing pump outs unless they are renting from that particular marina. So we have boats out there that are full and in need of a pump out. And I am concerned that people are going to start dropping sewage into Estero Bay because they have no way to get pumped out. So I would like to know whether my fellow council members would be willing to enlarge our prior discussion or ruling about providing pump outs. If we don't provide them, I worry about the pollution of our back bay.
Well, certainly no one wants to pump sewage into the pass or the bay. Roger, do you have a comment on this?
Last information I have is that there was a pump out service, but I would agree that if there are none available, and we have to be the place of last resort, so we should pump the person out if there's nothing available.
I will forward her email to you, Roger, and if you know of some place she can use, you could let her know that.
Excuse me 1 second. Would there be an associated fee with that, Roger, or is that?
She's already purchased pump out tickets from us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a separate issue, not to belay this specific problem that we need to solve, but we have we need to go through our marina management plan. I think it's time for us to relook at that and make some decisions about how many of our services are we going to extend to people that are outside the mooring field, but in the town's jurisdiction. And then furthermore, how many of our services are we going to extend to people who are not in a mooring field and outside our jurisdiction? That's a conversation for another day.
Thank you.
Solve a specific problem right now.
Go right ahead, Rexanne. I'm sorry.
I'd like to request that we add a review of our policy and procedure manual. It seems that each council that comes along likes to tweak that some as to how we function. So I think we should discuss that at our next M&P meeting.
Okay.
Does anybody else agree that we should do that?
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Yes.
As the town's representative to the federal census, I have unfortunate news to report. I haven't looked up the latest stats, but as of April 14th, the self-response rate for the census for the state of Florida was 47.4%. However, for the town of Fort Myers Beach, our self-response rate was only 22.4%. That means that basically 4 out of 5 people who live on the beach have not responded to the census. This is a terrible situation. It could hurt all of us financially, the town financially. I understand that we are not alone, that there are other places that are also showing a low response rate, but I'm less concerned about them. This is my town. I am very sorry to hear that my fellow citizens, despite the fact that most of them are sitting home with not a lot else to do, have failed to respond to the census. So I urge you all, if you have not done so, to please respond. I see that you have yours, Ray.
I happen to have it right here and just received it recently. It's just in the matter of the last few days. So
that's a follow-up. You should have gotten a postcard like 6 weeks ago asking you to respond by phone or online.
I don't recall seeing that, but anyhow.
Yeah, I got 20 of them.
Yeah, Bill and I worked that through, and
okay.
That was an interesting problem.
And Madam Vice Mayor?
Yes.
I would just say that that's a great point, and it has a huge impact on fiscal issues for the town. Aside from being the right thing to do, I wonder if it's possible to either have the town or yourself as the sort of the liaison, maybe write a letter to the editor to both of our weekly papers, and maybe the town could put something in its utility bill, because this is important. Those numbers are really, really dreary. And
explaining the ramifications.
I think this would be the perfect project for our new PIO to work on.
I agree with that.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how much of this has to do with the virus of people who've left and they're not around to receive these mailings.
It could be. Moving on from the census, I received an email from one of the persons who runs farmers markets in the area. She pointed out that farmers markets in Punta Gorda, as well as farmers markets elsewhere in Lee County, are providing something similar to the takeout service of the restaurants, that they go online, they take orders for produce. They're not selling knickknacks and clothing and things like that, but other localities have allowed them to open the farmers markets as a drive-through for people to pick up produce and food. I had sent this earlier to Roger, who didn't feel that it was within what we had allowed. So I indicated to him that I would bring it up at this meeting. To me, I don't feel this is enlarging anything. We already allow people to pick up food from the restaurants and go to the grocery store. So I would love to have the council let Roger know that if I put this person in touch with him, that he could allow them to operate in a similar fashion.
I agree. So the record, my wife goes and she orders online and picks it up from farmers in Bonita. So it works well. She doesn't feel exposed. Some places you go and they'll just put it in your trunk, and other places it's on a table and you just go and pick it up.
I agree. I received the same letter. I agree with that.
Okay.
Can I just get a clarification?
Yes.
So in the authorization to allow this, should we put in similar types of social distancing requirements in terms of what Councilor Beach mentioned?
Sure.
And it's food stuffs only, is that correct?
Foodstuffs only, either prepared or produce.
And pre-ordered. So
right.
It's not going in shopping, pre-ordered.
Yeah, it's pre-ordered.
Okay.
Moving on from that issue, I, like everyone else, have received a multitude of emails and contacts regarding a limited reopening of the beach. One of the things that I would like to mention that people don't seem to realize is that Sanibel has not closed their beach, and they are not being overrun. They have closed their parking, and I agree that we should continue to keep our parking closed. But when we originally closed our beach, I indicated at that time that I had severe reservations concerning that closure. And I was told that it was different from people walking on the sidewalks because we needed to close the beach to get people to leave town. And in my view, that goal has been accomplished. I cannot see that not allowing a limited reopening, I would say maybe 7 to 9 a.m., no reclining, etc. I've got some sample language I'm willing to read if people wish to discuss this. I believe that we need to do, in essence, a very limited reopening as a test to see how it would work. And I think that if we allowed people to walk or run on the beach between 7 and 9 a.m., that might be a workable solution to allowing people what is allowed, which is exercise. The sample language that I have written is that residents of the town of Fort Myers Beach carrying proof of residency would be permitted to exercise, walk, or run on the public portion of the beach at or below the mean high tide line between 7 and 9 a.m. All current social distancing rules apply, 6 feet apart, groups of less than 10. That the current parking lot closures would remain in effect, but pedestrians could access the beach via the town-owned beach accesses. The exception would not permit sitting, reclining, or bringing of beach paraphernalia, towels, chairs, etc. to the beach. In addition, I think we need to have a discussion about our closure that kept people out of their own backyards who owned beach property. So I think this is a two-part discussion.
Anything else?
Well, I have more to say about it, but at this point, I'm willing to let other folks chime in.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think they probably will chime in when they have the opportunity to present their items. So I think we'll just let it go at that for now. So Jim, as luck would have it, you are next up to speak. So go right ahead.
Well, Rexanne just gave my speech on, I don't call it reopening the beach, I call it allowing residents access to the beach. And I would argue that there's a public health argument in support of what Rexanne just well articulated, not just for exercise, which is deemed an essential item by all, but it's also excellent for maintaining mental health, particularly as we've progressed through this process. Again, this is no criticism of prior actions that were taken. I think the council's done the right thing. The difference now is that we're weeks into this process, and people are much more educated on the disease, on the virus, and they're also much more educated on social protocols. And I don't want to get fixated on the Estero Boulevard dynamic, but if you are on the south end of the island and you see that narrow sidewalk, and there's only one sidewalk on one side of the street, and folks it's very heavily trafficked in the mornings, and it's amazing how responsible everyone is in terms of literally walking onto the grass, getting out of people's ways. But it's a challenge, and if you open up that beach again for mental health, for exercise, it spreads the amount of space that people have to exercise. You do it for limited time, limit the park, keep the limits on parking, no laying out of blankets. We could even limit the size of the groups, limit it to residents and property owners. I think a very strong public health argument could be made in support of that proposal, and I would be in support of that proposal. I also agree that the restrictions on short-term rentals as well as hotels and other entities being late June, again, the initial shot at that. I'm not trying to be critical of that because certainly those were unique situations and unique times, and I think the council was well to respond. But we were clearly out of sync with our surrounding municipalities. And respectfully, I would urge that would be something, again, I don't know parliamentary wise whether we could do that today, because I think that's sending a message to all of the prospective folks who want to come to our island, particularly in June and May, that gosh, we're closed for business, but you can go to Sanibel, Marco Island, et cetera. And I think it puts our businesses at a competitive disadvantage. I'd love to see us take some action to bring us more in sync with our neighboring communities, if that's possible today. Also like to begin conversations about having maybe at the next council meeting or certainly the next M&P meeting where we can get some conversation going on economic recovery steps. I'd love to see us have panels of both large and small restaurant owners testify as to steps the town could take, large hotels, small hotels, retail, and begin to get some input from the business community about steps the town could take to be helpful, assuming the timing is right as we begin the reopening. And then a much more mundane issue, but I think important nonetheless, I put together a memo for training for new counselors that I sent to Roger and to John. And I don't know if they were able to disseminate it to the other counselors, but I have some suggested topics. And I talked with Roger and he seems to think that this is still covered under sunshine laws, which is fine. Maybe we could tack some of these items on to the end of each meeting for those who wanted to stick around, for those who are got some seasoning on the council who don't need this, that's fine. They wouldn't have to participate. And quite frankly, the public might glean some good information from these sessions as well. And as I told Roger, I'm not interested in taking a lot of time of the town attorney or the town manager, but just a conversational overview I think would be really helpful to the new counselors on items such as budget process overview, town operations, individual department heads, overview of fines, forfeitures, approach to code enforcement, overview of the special magistrate process, town council parliamentary procedure, resolution, ordinance process, sunshine laws, ethics rules overview, land development code, comprehensive plan, constituent media relations, history and evolution, Estero Boulevard project, fiscal impact, etc. We handled the lighting issue today, although I'd like to get some foundational information on how we got the lights that we currently have and where we're at as we prepare to go forward. And also the history and update on the new traffic flow design for the north end of the island. That was discussed near the end of the previous council, and it's really interesting, but I don't think it was hard for the new councilors to get a good sense of where that is. And again, the status of the Times Square project. We talked a lot about the park today, but also the Bay Oaks project. So I just thought it would be helpful if we could just take each one of those topics. We don't have to do it all in one meeting. We could spread it out over the next few months. Just be helpful for the town manager, the general counsel, town council, and for those other appropriate staff members to give nice overviews for those who wanted to stick around after a meeting, and again, open to other topics as well that counselors would find helpful. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Those were good suggestions, and I'm sure the staff will work with you on that. Councilman Veach.
Right, a couple of things, and I'll get to the big one too later, but okay, just with, as long as they're doing these Zoom meetings, we just make it a rule that people are allowed one public comment, either email or talking, and just go forward with that.
I'm all for that.
And the other is some of the advisory committees, I know they brought us up last time, that is that if something is happening that has some timely fashion, if we could maybe have them do this similar type of virtual meeting. I'm thinking things like the Anchorage Committee talking about the Bayfront design. Maybe Murph has the Mulholland Award that's pending. Just some things like that. They don't have to be long meetings. I know that takes town time. So that's just a suggestion. And the reopening is a real big topic. And I think that I've talked to, probably like some of you have, some hoteliers, and I have friends who have small hotels and restaurants and things. And it all, right now we are near or at our peak for this virus, which means we are at the peak number of infectious people who are out there. And as much as I want to help the businesses, I think that right now is a very dangerous time to take steps to liberalize things. But I do think that now is a good time to start having the conversation about how we balance contagion and the economy going forward. Because there's some things we can do. To me, the currency we have is how many individuals we are exposed to. Our island has had we're in the same category. We haven't had that many people on the island infected, even though we're small, and the number hasn't gone up, but it's in a fairly broad category now. And we think we want to try to maintain that for a little while. Now, when someone comes to the beach, if they have parking, and I know that you talk about, the beach access parking is gone, but there's still private parking. If they can come to the beach and they park, they are coming and they're contributing very little to the economy to get onto the beach. And there's a high number of individuals that we're exposed to. On the other hand, getting people to come and stay in a hotel where the hotel can manage the contagion better is a better, more efficient way to get money into the businesses with fewer people exposed. Now, I've had conversations with a number of GMs and hotel directors, and there's a lot of steps that can be taken by the hotels when they are open that will allow us to be safer. And for my money, the stricter these rules are, the sooner I'm comfortable with opening up these hotels. And just to get an idea, some of the more ones are like you have a wristband, so only guests are allowed in the common areas of a property. Simple things like only having the rooms clean when they're vacant. This is something I have a nephew who's a general manager of a large hotel, and that's one of the steps that they did before they had to close. Taking people's temperature when they're walking in the door and making sure that people aren't coming in sick. There's a lot of rules we can do that I think that will help us open sooner and open safer. As far as walking on the beach, I think I would like people to walk on the beach. I know that we would like to walk on the beach, but I think that it's a little premature to open up anything right now when we are at the peak number of infectious people that are out there.
Thank you. Any more, Bill?
The other is, it's about optics. Florida's gotten beat up at the front end of this by these optics of college kids partying on the beach, not really caring. It seems like we've already getting beat up on by some of the beaches that opened first. I think that the world is being affected by this. This isn't like red tide. We can just come back and have a whole world out there that hasn't been affected. In this case, everybody's been affected. So if you want to, it's better optics and a better message if we are cautious when the European season opens and the people know that we're being careful, that they're not coming to a petri dish, that they're coming to a place where their health is being looked after. And I think that's most of what I have.
Very good. Okay, Dan Allers, Councilman Allers.
Yeah, thank you. About the Zoom information, Roger, is there a way that we can get, I know there's a way, but is there something that we can put in with specific instructions on our website, a tab of some sort, that we can direct people to of the steps to follow? I know we've put it out there several times, but there seems to be still some confusion between if you're going to be on Zoom just to watch the meeting, not watch the meeting. If it's something that we can direct them to one specific spot, then maybe a tab on the website just with the information detailing where to go, how to watch it, how to comment, to make it easier for everybody. If that's something we could look into.
Yes.
Also, a few people have reached out about the Lee-Tran Route 400 being shut down. There are some people on the island that use that for transportation to Walmart or whatever to get goods. They've asked when that will be open or if it can be opened back up. What else did I have here? Also received an email about a code violation for repairs on a property that was purchased, and it appears as though the property had some renovations done before it was purchased. My question is, what is our policy as far as when we're looking at short-term rentals? Are we looking to see, one, if they're renting when they shouldn't be? Are we looking at pictures to see if they did renovations based on from when they purchased it and then issuing fines based on that? Just to enlighten me, if nothing else, what our policy is as far as giving violations to people who have purchased a home that may or may not have had work done without a permit before they purchased it. And maybe that's a question for the town attorney. And then what else do I have here? The pump outs, Roxanne pretty much covered that. Now about the other two big issues that are obviously people are talking about, the walking on the beach and the rentals. I have a couple questions about the beach being open. Roxanne had mentioned specific times. I kind of have an issue with that because not everyone can take the time to walk on the beach between 7 and 9. And then how do we enforce it? Do we have the means to enforce if you're on the beach at 9:30? Are we going to have someone out there just patrolling the beach all day to make sure that they are within compliance of the time we set forth? Like I said before, some people still work. Some people have to go to work, may not be able to fit in that time frame. I think if we limit it, if we decided to open it to a specific time, we could be leaving out a lot of people that wouldn't be able to utilize it. So my suggestion would be if the council feels that it's time to open the beach for local residents to get out there and exercise, I would be in favor of not necessarily putting a time frame on it. I think if we leave it open, more people will go out at different times. We're not specifically cattling them in, for lack of a better term, to a specific time. And as far as the hotels and short-term rentals and whatever else all is encompassed in that, I think that there's an opportunity there for us to maybe get some data if we allow them to start taking reservations in the future, whatever date the council decides, to see what kind of input we're going to have or what kind of influx we may have. People that, one, want to travel, two, have the means to travel, and if they come back, we open it up and for reservations, and it comes back that the governor says we are shutting it down, and that's the path we have to follow. In my conversations with the several different sizes of hoteliers around the island, they're very well aware that if we did decide to open it up, that they would have to shut down if it got shut down, and they all seem okay with that. I just think it would give us an opportunity as far as planning to alert other businesses when they open up, restaurants, bars, whatever it else may be, of what kind of people they can expect. I think it would allow them to staff, it'll allow them to purchase goods that they're going to need to support the people. So I think the sooner that we can get that data, that information out to the rest of the businesses on the island, as well as just normal residents on the island, I think the better off we'd be to be able to be prepared to open things back up in certain steps. So those would be my two recommendations for discussion.
Thank you.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you very much. All very thoughtful comments, by the way. All very well thought out, and I appreciate that, as I'm sure our residents here in the town do as well. I just have two items. Number one, my position on reopening the beaches, even on a limited basis right now. I'm firmly against that. And it's not because I don't want the beaches open. Believe me, I want the beaches open just as much as, well, maybe not as much as everybody else, but I certainly want the beaches reopened. But my belief is that we've come too far at this point in keeping the virus down here on the beach to blow it in the last several weeks of what we've accomplished. Now, people will say, well, nothing's going to happen by opening up the beach for a couple of hours in the morning. Well, maybe not. And I'm not willing to take the risk of anybody on the beach here getting sick or worse. I don't want to take that responsibility. So, and once we say the beach is open down here on a limited basis, that's not just the five of us and the staff here talking about it. That's disseminated everywhere. So everyone in the county will know that Fort Myers Beach is open. Now, in their minds, of course, we know that it'll only be open for a couple of hours in the morning, but not in their minds. In their minds, the beaches will be open. And then the other thing we have to worry about is what the county decides to do tomorrow at their meeting. I will tell you that I've been on these conversations, these phone conversations with the other mayors and the County Commissioner Hammond and State Senator Benequisto and a few others, and that Commissioner Hammond seems to be leaning strongly towards reopening these county parks down here, our beach parks down here, as soon as possible. Not on a limited basis, mind you. Well, it may be on somewhat of a limited basis, but soon. And I just don't know how we would handle that. Would we barricade those parks so they couldn't leave those parks and come out onto our beaches? Would we have armed guards out there to prevent those people from entering our beaches? I just don't know how that would all play out. So I'm not of any I'm not in any hurry. Again, not to repeat myself, but I will. We've come too far in preventing disasters down here, and we've done a great job of doing it. And I just want to see this out through a few more weeks and see if we can't see that. And again, I'm being advised, and I take my direction from the medical health, from the healthcare providers to take my direction from. You may take yours from somewhere else. That's fine, but that's where I'm taking mine from. And they say we're not over this just yet. And I'm very leery. I'm very leery of opening up. You know, I'm quoted in the papers saying that, you know, how do you think you would feel to live in a beachfront home, as some of our members do, and or a beachfront condominium, and not be able to stand out on your own beach outside? Well, it would be a hard one to bite, and I'm sure it is for a lot of people. But there are a lot of other people, because I get it from both sides, and I'm getting more responses from people who are saying, you're doing the right thing, stay the course. They appreciate the fact that we've made this effort, and they want us to continue. They also feel that we've come too far to let anything happen now, and I'm of that same mind. So that's my 2 cents on that.
With all due respect, Mayor, I hear 3 votes here today to move to at least a limited reopening. I understand that I can't force a vote on this during council member items, but I would respectfully ask that we set a special meeting a week from today to deal with this issue and to discuss the hotel issue that's been brought up.
Well, I'm getting to the hotel part of it, but as long as you're debating me now, Vice Mayor, you brought up Sanibel as a part of your reasons to justify our being open.
I respectfully did not debate you. I asked for a special meeting.
The mere fact that you've spoken during my items, you're debating me. So you brought up Sanibel. The island of Sanibel is a totally different situation than ours. They have, their beaches are very regulated over there. They have the parking areas that are defined. They're closed. They have their own police department policing out there. Everybody knows who everybody is out there. They have a $6 toll to get over the bridge to get out there. You know, you're comparing apples to oranges when it comes to Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel Island. So that's where I stand right there. Now, as to the hotels, a group of hoteliers and other business people, hotel people, restaurant people, retail people have gotten together. They've gotten together and they want to start discussing what reopening Fort Myers Beach is going to look like. So they have a group put together, and they've asked me to act as their liaison to report back to town council about their ideas. I'm more than willing to tell you who these members are. They've asked myself and Roger Hernstadt from the town. They've asked for Jackie Lizak from the Chamber of Commerce. They've asked for Dan Hughes from the town, as a resident of the town. Another member is Mr. Kurt Brenner, who's an executive with Sunstream Properties. Mr. Marty Harity, who is a member of the Doc Ford Group. Mr. Al Durrett, who many of you know is with Fishtail Restaurant and formerly of the marina down there. Mr. John Richard, who has businesses in the Times Square area and properties and so forth, and Mr. Tom Torgerson, who everybody knows is a hotelier. So these gentlemen want to get together. They want to discuss these issues, and I've agreed to act as their liaison and report back any findings that they may come up with, any product they may come up with, back to the town council. So other than that, that is my report, and we'll continue on. And I'm not shutting you down, Vice Mayor. I just think that, I mean, it's within your authority to do what you wish to do about an emergency meeting, but and you can govern yourself accordingly.
Well, I believe that it's in the charter that a certain number, I'd have to look it up to see how many people have to voice to ask for one. I know the mayor can alone, the town manager can alone. I guess I'd like to hear from my fellow council members as to whether they'd like to call an emergency meeting or a special meeting.
I think if we're unable to come to a decision on those items today, that we should.
I think the difference between 1 and 2 weeks, I'd be more comfortable talking about this in 2 weeks to see how this infection is going.
I agree.
Well, it would have been helpful to have the M&P meeting after our first council meeting, because then we could have had a more open discussion about these items. So that kind of puts us in a box a little bit today, unfortunately. I would support a special meeting. I do think I agree with the mayor. It would be helpful to hear what the county does tomorrow. And obviously events are unfolding very quickly, and it'd be nice to see what the state numbers are and so forth. But I think that Vice Mayor's asked for a meeting, not tomorrow, but for a week from now. And that seems like a lot of time. Unfortunately, we don't have another council meeting until May 4th, which is quite a ways away. So I think a special meeting might be in order. It doesn't mean that we're committing mutiny here. We're just trying to continue the dialogue during kind of a state of emergency here. And
I don't consider that mutiny at
so
all.
May 4th might be challenging.
You know, everyone's entitled to speak up, and I don't consider that mutiny. I'm open, and certainly we're all open to everyone's opinions here. So that being said, it sounds like Jim and Dan and Rexanne are all in favor of a special meeting. So that seems to be the direction. I myself agree with Councilman Veach that you know, if we're going to be waiting a week, what's one more week? But anyhow, if that's the will of the majority, then that's what we'll do.
Well, my preference would have been to discuss it today. So parsing this out as a week, 2 weeks, etc. I was trying to be polite by asking for a special meeting a week from today, since it appeared that we were not allowed to deal with this today.
Yeah. Well, we're not taking a vote. We're sort of we're giving direction here. But if that's your intention, I mean, I don't know that it requires a vote for a special meeting, does it? Is the town attorney still around?
It would be, I only asked for the meeting because I felt like I was being shut down here today from dealing with this today, Mayor Murphy. If you're saying that, you know, it's ridiculous to do it in a week because we have another meeting in 2 weeks, then let's talk about it today.
I never used the word ridiculous, did I? No, come on now.
Mayor, I'm here.
Okay. Would you like to opine on this matter, John?
Well, you know, certainly the concept of noticing and providing for an agenda is to put the general public on notice of what may be discussed. However, with that said, there are a number of Attorney General opinions that do provide that it's foreseeable that items can come up for discussion during the course of a meeting and action may be taken on them. So there's nothing that precludes you from doing so. If you prefer to set a special call meeting, then that is also certainly within your discretion. I would make two comments as you discuss this particular issue moving forward. One on the issue of hotel closures and short-term rentals. You know, the language in our closure order is substantially similar or mirrors that which the governor has already entered, particularly as it relates to short-term rentals. And so the prohibition on short-term rentals that we have in place essentially bootstrap or mirror those of already of the state. And there is a prohibition on short-term rentals, including accepting new reservations until the end of this month at a bare minimum. So we couldn't do anything less than that. Under our home rule powers, we have the authority to go beyond that, and the governor has made that clear, but we can't do less than what the state has already ordered. So as it relates to short-term rentals, the limitation is in place on not only having short-term rentals, but accepting new reservations until the end of this month. And that may be extended or may not be extended. That will obviously be up to the governor. You all, you know, once that happens, whether it does or doesn't get extended, then I would suggest that would be the appropriate time to take up that particular issue. The beach closure, that's at your discretion. Oh, one last issue on the beach closure. I know that the manager had circulated to all of you a news article regarding litigation involving Walton County and beach closure and the ability of that beach closure to limit the private part of the beach. The order just came out today, circumstances that all local governments across the state find themselves in. It is appropriate to close beaches, both public and private, if that's their desire. And they aren't infringing upon the private property rights of the upland owners.
John, I'm a bit confused. You've mentioned, I agree with your analysis that we can't do anything less than what the state has pronounced, and no one's even arguing for that. What we're arguing for on the rental and the hotel issue is to be in sync with our fellow municipalities. And right now we're all the way near the end of June. So for us to telegraph that we're not all the way till June, we're mid-May or we all decide end of April, whatever, to be in sync with the state, the county, the fellow municipalities, that allows our businesses then to take reservations for those out months where right now they can't. So it is time sensitive, and no one's arguing being out of sync with what the state's already pronounced. So I'm a little, am I missing something in your comments? Because why wouldn't we be able to do that in a special session, and why wouldn't that make sense?
Oh, you can do that. I'm just saying it can't be less than the accepting reservations. You would not be able to start at the earliest until May 1st under the state's order, and that's assuming the state does not extend it.
Right, and no one's arguing that we should go any sooner than the state. No one's even arguing that.
Otherwise, it's within your discretion.
Okay.
John, I hope this is the last time that you come into this meeting from inside of a vehicle. It's been pretty rough here today, but I'm sure there's some extenuating circumstance. But I hope this doesn't happen again. Okay. Well, what's the verdict here?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think John, the attorney, covered the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Mayor, that you were asking about what's the difference between making a decision in a week, or is it something that can be talked about today?
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. You have the discretion to do so. If there's a majority vote, you can decide that right now if you so decide.
I must have missed that. Thank you.
Let me just offer this as in the spirit of compromise. The mayor had originally suggested the next council meeting, which is on May 4th. There are some who may want to do it today. In a perfect world, I'd like to do it today. The vice mayor suggested a week out. That seems like a pretty healthy compromise. It gives us a week gives us a chance to hear from the county, gives us a week to continue to watch it as it comes in, And we don't have to do anything on the special meeting, but at least it gives us a chance to discuss it and not wait 2 weeks as opposed to 1 week. So I think that seems like a reasonable compromise.
I understand that point, Jim. My concern is that there's I agree with we don't want to get anybody sick. That's 100% agreement across the board, I think. But there are a lot of people out there. In a week could be the difference between their businesses closing and never opening again, or still sustaining. So, although I agree with your idea of compromising, this has been going on for a long time, and a lot of the businesses out there and people in general, when it comes to walking on the beach, are uncertain as to what the end game is, or what the plan's going to be, or how to plan going forward. So I would be of the mindset of the sooner that we could get them some direction, whether it has to be changed by the governor's orders or not, I think we'd be better set at getting data. I mean, every day counts now. Every day things change. So that's where my mindset would be on this. But I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Dan. I'm just trying to find a middle ground here if it's possible.
Well, one thing I have to, we're kind of dealing with certain expectations. I mean, right now we're kind of peak in this infection. And the idea that it's like, a frying pan's on the fire. Just because you turn the fire off doesn't mean you can grab the pan. You've got to let it cool down. And I also kind of disagree with, I understand that a lot of people are inconvenienced by not being able to go on the beach. I'm inconvenienced by not being able to go on the beach. But it pales in comparison to the suffering that businesses are doing. And opening the beach for walking from 7 to 9 doesn't help the businesses at all. If we are going to open up our island at all, for my money, we start opening up with the businesses. So we start allowing some rentals and some shops and restaurants to open where things can be controlled, where social distancing can be enforced, and do it in a way which helps businesses. We're spending this currency of the infection, and to open the beach to walkers is setting a tone. It's opening up exposure without helping the businesses at all.
Okay. All right. So there's been, I agree with what you just said, Bill, and our personal suffering down here pales in comparison to other areas. I'll just add that as well. But anyhow, what we've got here is whether we're going to call a special meeting in a week or so, and it's unusual, but let's decide right now whether we're going to do it, so there's no question.
Before we vote on this, one option. Now we have an M&P for May 7th. Could we move that up a week and use the M&P to have a thorough discussion about a strategy, a comprehensive strategy for how we're going to reopen, get your feedback from the different businesses, hotels, what they're willing to do to keep everybody safe, to open as soon as possible, and then go forward with a comprehensive strategy instead of a knee-jerk thing about one aspect of opening the beach.
That would be fine with me. Whether we're able to come up with a comprehensive strategy that soon or not is anybody's guess, but I'd be willing to try. So go ahead, Roxanne.
I believe if we have a special meeting, we have to designate what's on the agenda so that there's knowledge of that. And what I'm hearing is different folks want to talk about a lot of different aspects of the emergency measures that have put in place. So I guess my suggestion would be that if we have an agreement to hold a special meeting in a week, that the agenda include possible discussion of amendment of any of the emergency motions, proclamations, or orders.
I'd also prefer to make that kind of forward-looking. To, ideally, you like to put dates, although really the virus will choose this. If places, and not just us, we're an island, if people open up too early, then like a lot of other places, we'll get an increase in infections, and that will slow everything down and hurt everybody more. So my view, it's more about a comprehensive strategy looking forward about when we open, how we open, as opposed to just when we open.
And Bill, my point of view was more not necessarily, we all know that we have to follow the governor's rules here, was more for planning. You know, we want to plan, and by saying if we could let them start taking reservations, that obviously couldn't happen before May 1st. I think that's essential in planning. I think that gives us some data. Now they are fully aware that they may not be able to, and they may have to cancel those reservations should the governor extend it. I think everybody understands that, but I think the sooner that we can give them the ability to start planning to give us data about who's going to be coming, are they getting reservations? There may be nobody that's booking anything, and then we have different things to talk about. But that's where I was coming from when I was talking about planning. We're not giving them an open date. We're giving them hope that they can start getting money come in to be able to continue their business. That's where my focus was.
Yeah, and there's also, there's thresholds there, right? Because, I mean, you can tell a hotel that you're allowed 50% occupancy, but in May, with this going on, they may not get that even if they're allowed to. And then everyone has their thresholds about, not only your break even, what occupancy do you need to make money, but also what occupancy do you need to keep your doors open and not lose more money than you have when you're closed.
Yeah, I agree.
Business decisions that have to be made by the individual property owners.
And that's Mayor, that I really applaud you getting together, because I've had similar conversations. And I would like to have consensus in the industry to say that these are the large hotels, small hotels, these are the measures we will take when we are open. Because the idea that we're going to open up and it's going to be fireworks and parades and that kind of stuff is just really not going to happen, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, everyone's talking the same thing, these slow rollouts and so forth and so on. And those are the kind of, that's the kind of feedback that I want to get from these folks. And they're business people. They want to get open, there's no doubt about it, but they want to do it the right way. And they don't want to, and they also appreciate the fact how far we've come. And, but they also, there's this bit about the reservations, that they want to be able to start taking reservations. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about that and how that's going to roll out. But, so I'm going to ask right now, the question on the floor, I believe, is whether we want to have a special meeting. Let's not call it an emergency meeting, because I don't think it is an emergency at this point. But let's call it a special meeting. If there's a motion to have this special meeting, or a motion not to have it, I'd like to hear that from the members now.
Well, in the spirit of compromise, as Mr. Adderhold indicated, I would move that we hold a special meeting 1 week from today at 9 a.m. and that the agenda be comprised of any discussion regarding any of the emergency orders or declarations that have been made by the town council.
Is there a second for that?
I would second that.
Seconded by Councilman Allers. Discussion, as if we haven't already. But anyhow, go right ahead. Any discussion?
I would like to include that we're, maybe it's better for the M&P that we have a strategic talk, and in a week, maybe, the mayor can get more feedback from the businesses that are affected or are part of this. So we can come up with a way we can help them reopen in a way that helps them in the most efficient, safe way possible.
Mr. Mayor?
So yes, sir.
May I recommend that that the topic issues, that way, you can take up, the council can take up any of the previous orders, new issues that were.
You're going to have to repeat all that, John.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think what John's trying to say is that the span of the conversation is COVID-19. Is that correct? I think he just wants to clarify that point. Special meeting.
I think in dealing with the emergency orders that have been in place, specifically
associated with COVID-19.
Right.
Correct.
So
I would include that.
So let me get this right. If this measure should happen, if this motion should happen to fail, then the next motion would be to call for a moved up M&P meeting to discuss these items. Is that correct? Is that the alternative?
I was under the impression that this motion was going to pass. I think there are 3 votes for it, so.
How do you know that?
Based on what people have already said.
Okay.
Yeah, I was under the impression that this is a compromise as opposed to waiting 2 weeks versus doing it today. We would give a week for additional information to come in and for some time to digest all these issues and take additional input. And that was, I thought, the week from today would be the compromise vote. That was my impression.
Okay, good enough. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor of calling a special meeting next week to discuss the matters that were defined in the emergency orders that we issued, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Who were the ayes?
I was.
Roxanne?
I was. Adderall.
Dan and Jim. Okay. I'll say aye just for the heck of it. And Bill, you're going to stay nay?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It's okay. Whatever.
I'm gonna say nay. I just think that we're at the peak. I think a week is too early to make these decisions.
Well, I agree in that respect, but I'm trying to do. Okay, so the motion carries, and so we'll have another meeting. All right, we'll go on to the next item, which is adjournment. But first, the next regularly scheduled virtual town council meeting will be Monday, May 4th at 9 a.m. And the next town council virtual management and planning session will be Thursday, May 7th at 9 a.m. And town manager, do you have your calendar in front of you, what date this special meeting would be?
Yes, sir. It'd be April 27th, I believe, at 9 a.m. if I heard the council correctly.
April 27th at 9 a.m. Okay, that's it. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
With the committee that you were referring to,
yes.
Could you possibly reach out and ask them if they'd be willing to add maybe a couple of people that are in the same industry that aren't necessarily at the higher end level of hotel, maybe a mid-level and lower level, just for further discussion?
Yeah, I will bring that forward. I thought we had that covered with Mr. Richard, but anyhow, if not, we'll put it forward. It'll be a freewheeling group, and I expect some good ideas will come out from these gentlemen and lady, and I'm looking forward to reporting back to the council on anything that we may come up with, and if it's appropriate during the special meeting, then I'll report on that as well.
And yeah, just a note too, I would anybody who is in business on the island who has an opinion, has a strategy, has an idea, reach out to your counselors. You can always talk to us. You can always send us emails. It doesn't have to be part of necessarily a group, and we'll listen because we realize what you're going through and how important it is.
Amen to that. And we do realize what they're going through, and it's these are very challenging times for all of us, and but none more so than people who are making their livelihood off of it. So with no other business to conduct today, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.